And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, yeah.
Attention to roll call, everybody. Welcome. Happy Monday. Welcome to the finest Unfiltered. Eric's still going to be out. Spoke to him yesterday. He sounded a lot better than he did the day prior. So he's still healing. He's probably going to be out about a week, maybe two. But he's good. You know, we talked for a while. So he's good. He's healing. He's walking around. So he's happy to be on the healing process. So what's up, Marlon? What's going on, brother?
Yo, morning, bro. Morning, chat. Hope everyone's doing all right today. Yeah, and for those of you wondering, yes, that intro will be updated soon. Okay, we know who you are. You're watching, and yes, that intro will be updated soon. But kind of a quiet weekend, considering the last few weekends we've had in New York City. But we still have content to talk about here. So don't think we're gonna have a quiet show. Okay. So yeah. How's everything?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a quiet weekend in New York City. But
I mean,
I was
no
in
riots
Manhattan on Saturday. I didn't look too quiet to me. You know, like it was like.
Yeah.
You know, I know yesterday, with the Pride Parade, the NYPD had their hands full. A lot of shootings over the weekend. A lot of shootings. You know, news hasn't reported any of them. Crazy amount.
Good point.
Crazy amount of confirmed shots fired. Crazy amount of unconfirmed shots fired. Crazy amount of people shot, and a crazy amount of people stabbed. So I wouldn't say it was quiet. Maybe on the news front, but in reality, I wouldn't say that. You know. But obviously, this episode, we're going to talk about a ruling that came out of the New York Court of Appeals. It's concerning YouTuber Long Island Audit, Sean Reyes. I think we discussed it about 2 years ago, where he entered Brooklyn precincts and was pushing back an NYPD policy that was stating that you don't have the right to record inside of a precinct lobby. You know, at that time, you know, I remember talking about it, and at that time, I remember because that was coming on the heels of a 2020 law that was passed both in the state and then by city council. The state law is the New York Right to Record Act, and I think the city law is the New York City Right to Record Act. And that basically upheld the right for individuals to record the police. You know, not interfere with police duties, not get in their face, not intimidating them, not getting right on top of them, but being able to record the police. And so I know that I don't believe that policy to be fit to be the NYPD policy that you can't record inside of a precinct lobby. Now, I don't think you could be able to walk into a federal building and walk around the police precinct or anything else. I'm not on that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying you walking into a precinct, you're asking police officers for service. You're going to your government for redress. I'm a victim of a crime. I have a question. I need help. Whatever it is, I personally believe that policy flies in the face of the United States Constitution, saying you can't come in here and you can't record. A New York State Court of Appeals actually ruled the opposite. And it's pretty wild what they said. YouTuber, like I said, Sean Reyes, he was arrested over this. He's well known. He's done a lot of videos where I think that he's found gaps in policing. And I think he's exposed a lot of gaps in policing. And I think he's exposed a lot of gaps in the law. And I think he is a First Amendment order. I don't love his earlier work. I think his later work recently is a lot more nuanced. And I think he is attacking those weaknesses, both in the law and in policy. And I think it is important work. And now, do I agree with absolutely everything he does? I don't. But, you know, how could we say we want a constitutional police department and yet we don't abide by the United States Constitution? So the court ruling was pretty significant. They said that basically they held that you do not have the right to record inside of an NYPD precinct. They held that that policy is actually correct. So what they said is that it does not the New York State civil rights law, which is the state law, and the New York City administrative code law, which is the city law for the right to record, do not create a statutory right to record police activity inside the publicly accessible lobby of an NYPD precinct. They say the reason they say this is they gave a couple of reasons. One, they said that the law itself doesn't identify a place. The statutes are silent about the location. I mean, I think that is a ridiculous ruling right there. I think it's saying that you have a right to record the police at all times, and they didn't put the location in there because it wouldn't make sense to put a location in there. Now, I often talk about how legislation is incompetently written, and I don't think leaving out locations isn't even an issue here at all, because I think it's saying you have the right to record police in reasonable situations. And I believe that is even applies to a precinct lobby. Not beyond the precinct lobby, but where it's publicly accessible, where it's a public space. And that NYPD precinct or any precinct whatsoever, the lobby of such is a public place. I mean, and what are your thoughts around the initial? We'll go further. They give a couple of other reasons, but what are your initial thoughts about this? Because I'll be honest, I'm like, I don't agree with this ruling at all.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. Just to initially talk about it, to bring it up, I don't agree with it either. You know, I think you know, considering the myriad of reasons that you can go into a police precinct, you know, there are so many you can go into a police precinct for, you know, and we're not just talking about you know, if you have a complaint, if you have a crime, you know, it could be something as simple as just going in to find out what events are happening connected to the community council, you know. So it doesn't have to be, you don't necessarily have to go to a police precinct for, you know, oh, sorry about that. The car just went by. You don't necessarily have to go to a police precinct because you were the victim of a crime or you're reporting some criminal activity. Okay. Because of that, I think that it's a little unreasonable to you know, to say that the public doesn't have the right to record within the lobby itself. Okay. I think the baseline problem here is that our facilities are just poorly designed, and they're outdated, and they were built for a time when people didn't carry high definition cameras in their pocket 24/7. So,
Well, look, so you know, one of the other reasons that the court stated is that there's victims of crime there in that lobby, and you're walking in to potentially a crime victim sitting with a police officer telling their story, and these people have a right to privacy. And I think that statute, I totally agree with. Like when they reference that part, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like, who the hell are you to record a crime victim sitting there telling their story when even the police have to refrain from that recording, say it's a assault of a sexual nature, or you're giving out personal identifiable information, where you live, your credit card numbers, your address, your phone number, your name, something happened to a child, there's minor information on there. So that ruling, I think, is completely accurate. And I think that ruling 100% applies to what you're saying here about that the police precincts are actually absolutely outdated, because the same way that I agree with the court in this, that you shouldn't have the right to record a crime victim telling their story, or anyone else sitting in that lobby. Well, I wouldn't say you don't have the right to record anyone sitting there, but recording, like, obviously confiding in the police department, right? So the same way that is it's also true that no one sitting in that lobby along with you should hear that information either, right? That is a huge privacy concern. There was a lawsuit that came out a while back, and it was about Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. And a lawyer with an advocacy group sued the New York City Police Department, and they said that basically, the NYPD is outdated. The buildings are hundreds of years old. New York City never kept up with compliance for American Disabilities Act. And the overwhelming majority of NYPD precincts, if you're a disabled person, you will not be able to access. Now, the court's ruling on that case was like, well, look, you have to start working towards it, but we're not completely unreasonable here. We can't make every single building ADA accessible. Some of them you can't even put a wheelchair ramp on just because of the width of the sidewalk. These precincts were designed in a much different time when there was a lot less laws, a lot less regulations, and honestly, people with disabilities were really shut out of thought process when it came to building. That's no longer the case. So what they said to the NYPD is, well, then you have to create these American with Disabilities Act hubs, right? And so the NYPD is still obviously in the process of that, and that will cost billions of dollars to do. And I think, if anyone really took an overall look at that project, you would say that just like every other thing that happens in New York City, it's way too expensive, it's taking way too long, and it's being done poorly, incompetently, and it's not being run properly, right? And so when you look at that, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you would think that in the 20th century, or 21st century, excuse me, you would think that today that you would be able to access a precinct, walk into a precinct, access a police officer, and be able to go somewhere in private and sit down with that police officer, free from other prying eyes, free from possibly being recorded by anybody else. And then I think if that was the case, this Court of Appeals ruling really has no legs to stand on. And I think that a competent police department, regardless of this ruling or not, would already be working towards this, where crime victims were telling their stories in private to police officers. But I think that's a multifaceted issue. I think it's not just an infrastructure issue and the fact that all of our precincts are outdated. I also think it's a manpower issue, and the fact that we don't even have enough cops to properly handle walk-ins at the overwhelming majority of our precincts.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So for you civilians watching us, keep in mind that the NYPD has 77 active precincts or station houses in the city.
Is it still
And
77?
it used to be 76, but I think
it's 78 now.
78 with the 116.
Yeah. Pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure because it was 77. In 2021, I know when I left, it was 77. I'm pretty sure it's 78 now.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
Yeah,
But I guess that it was 76 before the what's the new one in Staten Island?
The 121. That made it to 77. The 116. So it is 78.
116 would make it 78.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, keep in mind that doesn't change the fact that about 90% of these precincts were built before the year 2000, right? And let's say it gets even worse when you look at the 1980s and prior to the 1990s. I'm going to see if I could find a specific percentage of that. But the problem is that, again, these facilities are older, like John says. They don't accommodate the Americans with disability requirements. And, I think they aren't prepared for the future that's incoming. And the future that's incoming is one where our devices are even smaller. And those high definition cameras that people are carrying around in your pocket, aka your smartphone, are going to the same processes that are in there are going to be in your glasses. They may be in your phones. I mean, they may be in your watches, or God knows whatever else, clothing or accessories that you wear. And I think it's kind of that the laws. The problem with laws is they're always running behind technology, and in this case, I 100% think it is, and it's not. It's not taken into mind the fact that if a person sitting in a precinct can can view a victim, giving their report, giving their information to the officer, or if they can hear it, then you have to assume that the technology they're carrying on them can also be recording that information. Um, and that's the problem. The problem is that these facilities are too open, and they they're much different from a lot of the station houses that you see out of state, where in those precincts you walk inside and there's a lobby, and behind the lobby are the workers, and the receptionist or the cops. They're behind a glass partition, often a bulletproof glass partition or a door. And you if you have to give them your information, or you have to report a crime, you're often taken into another room beyond that wall, beyond that glass partition, where you sit down and give that information in private to the officer, not in a publicly accessed area like the lobby, which is what unfortunately happens in the NYPD. So it's a problem. It's a problem. And in this case, when I come back, when it come back to me, I will go over the case just quickly. But I think this is an issue that's going to get revisited again.
No, there's a lot here, man. There's totally a lot here. And Nick Francis says, let's be honest, these First Amendment auditors aren't preserving or protecting the United States Constitution. They are exercising their right to harass police, period. Like I said, I watched some of Sean Reyes' earlier work, and I really didn't like how his mannerisms and what he was attacking. I don't think that was the case most recently. I think that he was really pushing back at the NYPD policy when I saw that. And then we'll get into recently what happened with him and the Suffolk County PBA, because look, I'm not a huge fan of any of this stuff, but I think, a lot of what he does is he creates friction, and he takes the conversation and he takes on situations to uncomfortable places. But I think he's standing on legal authority the majority of the time, in his case. Now, there's other guys that are going around just annoying the crap out of police and threatening them and getting them in their face. And that stuff, I already said 1,000 times. I think that the NYPD has failed police officers where they're not putting out training on what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think you see a lot of dumb things happening. And I think when we go further into this and you see that video that came out of the Suffolk County PBA, I mean, if you were ever an active cop or a police officer, you're going to be like, what the hell was that? And so, I mean, look, conversations are uncomfortable. And unfortunately, we continuously continue to progress past our founding, our nation's founding, and we do it for our benefit or our safety or our comfort. And, sometimes those things need to get peeled back. And I think, I'm not always a big back the blue guy, because I'm for things. I'm for, first and foremost, I'm for supporting the United States Constitution, because if we're going past the United States Constitution in an effort to just support the police departments, even when they're wrong, even when they're not aligned legally, we're not helping anybody, and that is not American. So again, I've been saying forever that those people that are getting up in cops' faces with cell phone cameras and just literally harassing them and talking to them in a violent and tumultuous manner, that those individuals should be arrested, and that is not legal and that is not protected by First Amendment activity. And yet we've seen nothing happen to those individuals. But you see a guy pushing back at a policy and he's treated a lot differently. So there's a, it's a very nuanced conversation, because I'm not going to lump all of them in together, So that's one. The other thing I want to say is that, like, I consistently talk to people that go to NYPD precincts or precincts throughout this country, and the cops won't take a report for them for crimes that happened, or they won't take the proper report, or they won't follow up, or they'll tell them incompetent answers and incompetent things. What is the difference if I walk in to an NYPD precinct and I'm trying to report something and I'm recording them, as opposed to if I called 911 and they showed up at my house and I record them? I have full right to do so. What's the difference if I video record them and they know about it, versus if I video record them inside the lobby and they don't know about it? New York City's a right to record state. So if my recording isn't publicly viewable and you don't know that I'm doing it, this doesn't violate that law. If I walk in and I'm audio recording you and I'm wired up, doesn't violate that law. So you're saying that you care so much about victims' rights that you're still going to allow me to walk in with an audio recording secretly, and there's no law protecting victims against that? So I think it's a very incompetent stance in this. And again, if it is true, Marlon, because it's, the judges are worried about the money that's going to be paid out, or because they're worried about the infrastructure of New York, and that, they're making a ruling to fit those problems and to not address those problems, then we have even a bigger problem, because our courts are captured by the state. They've become the arm of the administrative wing, and they shouldn't be. The judicial wing and the administrative wing should not be, executive wing, should not be working together. And that's kind of what's been happening. And we saw that happen throughout COVID. We saw that happen with the mandates. So that there's a lot of different things in here that are crossing when we talk about First Amendment, and we talk about police departments or any government agency for that matter, including politicians, and them and the judicial branch working together. And what they're doing is just ensuring that your rights aren't being adhered to.
Yeah. So where do we start? So let's go back a little bit and give you guys a little background on this case. Okay. So the case is specifically SeanPaul Reyes versus the city of New York. And let's go back. So the case was brought by SeanPaul Reyes, who is known as Long Island Audit, on YouTube, and I think he's on Twitter as well, but I don't have his specific address. Not important though. So the case was brought by him to the Second Circuit Court, right? And he sued the city of New York, claiming that the policy violated his First Amendment rights. So basically, he went into the lobby of the 61st Precinct in Brooklyn and began recording. And he was warned to stop. And, the officers pointed to a sign that, we showed the sign 2 years ago when this case was first brought up. The sign prohibited recording inside the precinct, and he refused to stop recording and was, arrested and charged with trespassing. So the Second Circuit sent what they did is they essentially sent a request for certification back to the state court of appeals. In New York State, the highest court is the Court of Appeals, right? And Reyes sued the city of New York, claiming that the policy of prohibiting recording in the lobbies violated his First Amendment rights and the Right to Record Acts, which were passed by the state and city. So the Second Circuit asked for a certification question to the Court of Appeals on how those laws should be interpreted. And basically, the court's opinion, the Court of Appeals opinion, is that those laws specifically do not include the interiors of a police precinct. Okay, those laws are meant for outdoor public spaces, and they do not involve police stations. Ultimately, the court concluded that neither the state legislature or the New York City Council intended for the Right to Record Acts to strip NYPD of its authority to restrict filming inside its own station houses and lobbies. And as John talked about, the reasoning was because they thought that the reasoning is they thought that victims in the let me pull it up specifically. They said permitting members of the public to record events and individuals in precinct lobbies would violate the privacy interests of crime victims, witnesses, and confidential informants and undercover officers, because they essentially use the lobbies to enter the precinct or to proceed, to other parts of inside the precinct. They said victims of sensitive crimes, including domestic violence or trafficking or sexual assault, enter a precinct lobby to report the crime. Officers, as a matter of policy, themselves turn off their body cams during recording such criminal complaints. So again, their reasoning is that basically victims of crimes and people who report crimes and confidential informants and undercovers use the precinct lobbies themselves. Therefore, if the public are allowed to record in there, they may record sensitive information that may be detrimental to the lives and of law enforcement in general. And as I said before, I think I think that the main problem here is that these lobbies are again outdated, and the fact that that a UC or anyone has to enter a lobby first in order to in a lot of these precincts, they have to enter into a space that's visible to the public before they go to their particular offices or whichever other space in the precinct is a problem.
I mean, I get people have the right to privacy, but when you're in a precinct lobby, you have no right to privacy. In order for me to access the cop, there's 5 people sitting there waiting to access the cop. I have to originally tell them what happened to me, right? How private is that? The NYPD is recording me the minute I walk in that lobby. Where's my right to privacy? Who said I wanted to be recorded? Who said I gave the permission to the New York City Police Department to record me? Where's my right to privacy in the lobby? How is that not a public space? Like, if it's not a public space, I mean, then you have a problem. You shouldn't be interviewing anyone in there, right? No one should be in there, because if you're so concerned with my privacy, I shouldn't have to utter a single word to a cop with anyone else around. And the minute I do, you're not concerned with my privacy. And where does that stop? Like, where does that stop? Crime victims, victims of sexual assault, undercovers, confidential informants walk in the front door of that precinct. Well, they shouldn't, but they do. They walk in the front door of that precinct. Are you telling me I can't record in front of a precinct now? Well, you know what? They have to walk to the precinct. So should I not are we not allowed to record within blocks of the precinct? What are we talking about here? What if I'm going to the precinct because I'm being told I'm being told that I'm going to be placed under arrest, that there's a warrant out for my arrest, or they found out that I am a suspect in a crime and they want to interview me. I can't come in and record that interaction so that I could build my defense up, but the police could record everything that happened to me. It's honestly, it's a crazy ruling, dude. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. The other thing they said is that the NYPD policy existed already. So what are you saying? You could just make it completely, NYPD could make an unconstitutional policy, then our legislators could create a law, and because I wrote that policy, the law doesn't apply? The other thing they said is that the judges found the laws were enacted largely in response to incidents such as the death of Eric Garner and George Floyd, where civilians recorded police activity on public streets, not inside police buildings. During legislative debates, there were virtually no discussion about precinct lobbies or station house. So you can't be killed in a precinct lobby or a station house? There's no reason for me to want to record. What if I go in there, my home was just victimized, I was just a victim of a burglary, and I'm going in there to file a complaint against a police officer, and the NYPD refuses to take it? No, we're not going to file your complaint. We're not going to take your complaint. We're not going to take your crime complaint. We don't care that your house was burglarized. We don't care that you were just raped. We don't care. I have no right to record that. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, that whole ruling is wild to me, and I agree with you, Marlon. There looks like there's collusion between between the executive branch and the judicial branch. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Now, I will admit that there is a trend nationwide to, of the court's ruling that basically the police lobby is a non-public forum. But again, I think these laws, these rulings are running behind technology and running behind the infrastructure. And the reason why I speculated online that let me see if I can pull it up. I speculated online that the judges, that was there some sort of discussion going on between the judges and the city? Because the thing is, if the city were to have to update its precincts to be ADA compliant, it's going to cost billions of dollars. If the city were to really, think this through and to modernize the precincts, it would cost billions of dollars. The mere fact that, again, 90% of our precincts were built before the year 2000, and think of it, guys, in a couple of years, that's the year 2000 is going to be like 30 years ago. And I know that sounds incredible, but it is, it's a fact. And so the mere fact that all these precincts were built before the year 2000, and I think it's about 60 of them were built prior to 1970. So that's it gets even worse. So I think the mere fact that so many of them were built in prior times is is an issue, and I think the fact that the city hasn't upkept infrastructure and hasn't modernized them and went along with technology and with the changing atmosphere that of the public, the way the public treats police, and the way the public is cognizant of a lot of the public is very cognizant of their rights, I think is a problem for the city, and it's a problem because the technology is still moving forward and it's not stopping. And I mean, just think of it for yourself. You guys who are in a precinct right now, you look around you, and just look at the technology we use in the precinct, right? How many times I hope the city is updated its the cameras inside a precinct, because how many times do the cameras by the cells go down? A lot of times they aren't working, you know? A lot of times they're really not working. And it's because, again, the infrastructure inside those precincts are so old, and it needs there's only so much times the city itself could slap a new coating of paint on it, and it's and it's gonna work. It's just temporary solutions for bigger problems, and that bigger problem is that they are outdated.
Well, you got a friend in the chat. Brooklyn's finest, 081. Bethel, I met one of your old sergeants. He said good things about you, kid. I remember when we were cadets. Happy to see you, good brother.
Oh, what's going on, BK? I'm not sure who that is, but he says we were cadets. Huh.
I didn't know you were a cadet, you nerd.
Yeah, I was a cadet. I was a cadet. No, I talked about it before. It's a great program, guys. It's a great program. Yeah, I think, I wish I knew about it when I was younger as well, because I think it's a great program to prepare cops. I got in the academy, and I thought it was I felt I was more prepared for the academy than a lot of the civilians, and I think that's part of the reasons why I became company sergeant when the military guy couldn't do it. He was a little older, and we had another Marine in the company, but he kept silent about being a Marine, because he didn't want to be company sergeant. Shout out to you, Smitty. I know you're out there somewhere, but yeah, I think it's a good program, and especially those cadets that go into precincts and are immediately doing work in a 124 room, or helping out a PAA, or helping out the squad or wherever, and learning the basic administrative stuff, the paperwork and all that. It's great to prepare you for the job ahead. So it's my little diatribe about being a cadet.
Whatever. Nah, it's a good program. If you guys interested in becoming cops, check out NYPD cadet program. Absolutely. So I was actually just jealous that I didn't do it. So that was my whole thing, because I was like, damn, I should have did that. Like, I was too stupid,
Yeah, plus they'll pay for your college too.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I should have did that. I was the dumb. I was dumb. But I didn't know. I didn't really know anybody in the department. So that was the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So shout out to the NYPD cadets, well, past and present, future too. So, all right. The other thing. So here's the thing. This Court of Appeals ruling isn't the end all be all on this, right? Because the court limited its ruling. So it doesn't say whether the First Amendment independently protects recording inside lobbies. And I'm going to say that it absolutely does, because it's a public space. Is a precinct a public space? Like, that's the debate right now. Is the precinct lobby a public space? And I'm going to say 100% it is. A lot of precincts have updated their precincts to be more community friendly, more inviting. They put glass on the outside, these glass storefronts on the outside of precincts. They put community spaces inside of the precincts. They put places, they encourage you to go, if you're going to sell any products, to do it in the lobby of a precinct. Right? If you're going to do any exchanges when it comes to orders of protection or custody battles or anything like that, to do it in a precinct, to go to the precinct lobby. So it's 100%, in my opinion, a precinct lobby is a public space, and the NYPD affirmed that by putting features in there like that: community-friendly spaces, free Wi-Fi, video games, TVs, a place to hang out. So it's a public space. So what the Court of Appeals did, they didn't rule on the First Amendment. They said they ruled specifically on the Right to Record Act. They did not rule whether this violated First Amendment or not. And I'm going to say, if this ever goes federal in a First Amendment debate, this Court of Appeals ruling is going to get thrown in the garbage. Because, I mean, I think, and that's where I think it honestly belongs, in my opinion, because I think it was an inapt ruling, and I think it doesn't address a lot of the issues it's claiming to protect. And it doesn't. And the other thing that it doesn't address is whether recording is permitted in other government buildings also, right? So if like this could go further. This could go further federally under a First Amendment claim that this violates the First Amendment. So that's still there. That obviously would be for a higher court, a federal court. So yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is a precinct lobby a public space? I could never say that it's not. I have to say it is, and I'm saying that just based upon all of the things that the NYPD's done and said, and so like this whole ruling contradicts that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's important to keep in mind that the ruling is pretty narrow. I think it's pretty narrow in that it focuses on the right to record acts, and I think it skips the broader First Amendment debate going on in this. And I think I agree with you, John. I think when that eventually finds its way to the back to the federal courts, it's going to it's going to get struck down, because again, like you said, this is what I said. This is why I say the NYPD, the city, it has failed to update those precincts, based upon not just on the technology, but on the on the public, the way the public treats a police precinct is much different now than it used to be in the past. Now it's kind of turning into like this community, like a community center almost, and I mean, we could have a debate whether a police precinct should be the be all end all of any community activity, but it's happening, and this is what a lot of the public wants, you know. And if you go to the 116, right, the 116 community council meeting, you have to walk through the lobby, you have to walk through the cells, you got to walk through like a hallway with much of the offices of the, like, the CO's offices on one side. I think maybe the DV office. There's a couple doors there, but the point is that you have to walk through areas that really should be a little more secure than that in order to get to the community room, right? So my point here is that the city wants to make these police precincts more friendlier and more community, like a community center. Okay, that's fine, but let's keep in mind it's also a police station where, again, victims come in and report their crimes. You have firearms in reachable areas that the public is now passing through. Okay, and you have confidential information that the public will be walking like feet away from certain offices. Okay, so it's impractical to want it to be both a community center and to conduct its basic function, which is being a police department. It's impractical if you don't design it to to the point where there's like a separate entrance or there's a separate hallway for those community oriented activities to happen, and you to lock up and basically secure the basic functions of a police department. And that's what's happening, so I think when this eventually lands again in the federal courts, this is and it becomes a wider discussion about the First Amendment. I think they're gonna lose. I think it's guaranteed, because and it's just, and it's they're gonna lose in particular because society and places like New York are now viewing police precincts as community centers. Yeah. So you want it to be a community center where things are friendly and the public has a right to take pictures and to do all these activities, but you're saying they can't record it. So what about all the recordings that happen at community council meetings? So we need to get permission to take that. In which case, what's happening here is we're opening the doors to subjective enforcement, which is a problem. You know, can I record inside a police precinct or can I not? or am I only allowed to record in a police precinct when when the whoever's running the meeting feels like it, or depending on what the weather is, what the day is, where the wind is blowing today, it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it shouldn't make sense. Chief Marino says, how about the safety issue, John?
Yeah.
How about it? Like there's no, like, to me, I mean, it's wild. A friend said to me, banks figured this out years ago. How come we can't? You walk into a bank. What are you here for? Oh, I'm here. You're here for a deposit, withdrawal. Oh, okay. Come with us over here. And now you go to your private area, right? Like, how come we and why is that? One, because we're not set up. We don't have the proper infrastructure, and we're not properly staffed. Someone said, "Oh, you need 2 station house securities." I think you need 2 station house securities. You need a telephone switchboard operator, and you need 2 intake officers to write all these reports. Yeah. And I'm talking in every precinct. And I don't care if you get slow times or there's slow times or there's not slow times. We're not properly staffed in the NYPD, and I don't think that we've been for a very long time. You're not going to get me to believe that we have 35,000 officers, but even if we did, I still don't think it's enough. I think we need to grow with the population, grow with the times. And so I'm thinking that number should be closer to 45,000, 50,000 officers. To operate properly, function properly, put out a good product, and be able to respond to crimes in a time, in a lot of time, a proper time, a competent time. So, that's definitely, again, when concerning the ruling, though, when we talk about safety, the ruling doesn't do anything to address any of that. Like, I agree with you, Marlon. I think when it's challenged, because I won't even say if, at some point it'll be challenged, and when it is, I think that we'll see. You're going to see this get overturned quickly. I think the ruling is ridiculous. Honestly, I just so this is a little different case now. It's involving Sean Reyes again, right? A lot of people say he's doing it for the money. I've said it myself, but at the same point, I'm not going to say that he doesn't have a point in a lot of things he says and a lot of things he does. I'm not going to do that because, like I said, I think a lot of things he does make it uncomfortable. So this is coming off the Long Island Audit channel. Here he is in his billboard truck, and he's going to protest the Suffolk County PBA. So watch what happens.
Audit here, back again with another video. On June 25th, I drove my billboard truck to the Suffolk County Police Union headquarters to peacefully exercise my First Amendment rights and to speak to Union President Lou Civillo about the reports of misconduct settlements that are extremely concerning. What happened next was tyranny.
All right, ladies and is anything he did here illegal?
Yeah. Is he going into? I missed the first part. Is he entering the parking lot?
He entered a parking lot of the Suffolk County PBA, pulled up with a billboard truck. Is this illegal as it sits?
Yep.
It is?
If that parking lot is a restricted parking lot or is a public access parking lot?
It's a publicly accessed parking lot. There's other offices in there. It's a commercial building.
Okay.
There's no signs that say no trespassing, nothing like that.
Yeah. If those other businesses are publicly accessible, then no crime. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's allowed to do that. Yeah, because again, there are other businesses there. If this was like a police precinct, say, or a government facility, you can't just drive into the parking lot unless it's a parking that's specific for the public to park their vehicles.
Yeah, so this is public parking, right? He's pulling in. There's nothing that says he can't do that. Like, he's not committing any crime by doing this. So,
Gentlemen, we just got to the Suffolk County Police Benevolent Association. I call it the Malevolent Association. There's the billboard truck here. Big, beautiful LED billboard truck. Let's see if we can talk to somebody inside.
Wow, look at this. 94% of people believe company culture is important to an.
I still didn't get the premium, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what? And let me take it back. Let's say there's signs there that says you can't park there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come in here, no trespassing, and you do it. You trespass. Could you be arrested immediately just for violating the sign?
Yes.
I don't think you can. I think you have to be warned first to leave.
Hmm.
And I think if you read the law, it says that you have to be aware that it was there. Because is it reasonable that you were able to see it? So,
well, that's a good point. Where the sign is. I mean, in most cases, you're going to be warned anyway. Yeah. You're not.
I mean, shouldn't you be?
Arrested.
Like, if you're violating the law, like it's a trespass. Like, look, dude, you can't be here. You got to go, or I'm going to lock you up.
Yeah.
You know, you want to protest? You could protest across the street. You know, you could protest outside, whatever it is. You can't protest here. You know?
So we're trying to get a hold of somebody here. It doesn't seem like anybody's coming to the door. We just wanted to speak again to the president of the PBA, Lou Civello. This is an interesting sign here. It's a thin blue line gang flag, of course, with the text, "No body-worn cameras in building. Please leave your body-worn camera in the lockers at the security desk." Hello? Hi. 2 people working the front desk at the PBA here, or the PMA. Again, there's nothing benevolent about the police union. As we've seen on the billboard truck, the PBA engages in the defense of officers who engage in misconduct, constitutional rights violations. They support legislation to diminish the rights of we the people. And we came here to speak to their president. He likes to go to the steps of City Hall and call out, quote, auditors for their harassment and threats made against law enforcement, and how auditors and people who record law enforcement abuse law enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. Hi, how are you, ma'am? Hi, do you work for the PBA?
No, I do not.
You don't? Okay.
No,
Thanks.
sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I think there's a doorbell there.
You said 5 minutes?
Now, look, there's a no trespassing sign right there. Did you see it right by her? Hold on, I'm going to go back.
Is that on the door right there?
Right there, right by her, right there.
Yeah.
But she says she's here for a closing. So is it a closing for a police officer? We don't know. There it is, right there. Here's the sign. No trespassing. But again, no trespassing. He shows up to the building and he's asking to speak someone. Let's pull up the law. No trespassing. Let's go further.
Seems weird. Lou Civello, how are you? Sure, no problem. How are you? You see me leaving? I immediately began to leave. Lou Civello, would you like to come on? I am leaving. Would you like to come on the channel? I'm leaving. I am leaving. You see me leave me? I am leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Lou Civello, you go on talk. You go. I'm leaving.
See, so Sean knows the law, right? Like, he pulls up. I'm going to pull up criminal trespass, New York State penal law.
Mm-hmm.
But Lou says, leave or you'll be placed under arrest. Reyes starts backing out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving. But as he's backing out, he's walking back.
I'm leaving.
This is the last
I'm
time
leaving.
I will tell you.
I'm leaving.
This is the
Hey,
last
you're
time
the
I
guy
will
from
tell you.
On Patrol, right? I've seen your podcast.
Leave.
What do you think
You are
I'm
on
doing?
private property.
What do you think I'm doing?
You are on private property.
I'm leaving.
This
So
is
would you
private
like to talk
property.
about the
You
hundreds of
are
millions of dollars?
trespassing.
No, I'm not.
You
Would
are
you like to talk
You are
about the hundreds of
trespassing on
millions of
private
dollars
property.
that the Suffolk County law
You
enforcement
are
agencies have
trespassing on
cost the
private
taxpayer?
property. Leave.
What
or
do
you
you
will be
think I'm
placed under
doing?
arrest.
I am leaving.
Leave.
Immediately
Leave.
began to
You are
leave.
not
That's how the law works.
leaving.
Yes, I'm leaving.
Get off the
I am
property.
leaving. I am getting off
You
the
are
property.
trespassing.
I am leaving.
You will be placed
I am leaving.
under arrest.
I am leaving.
I'm going to place you under arrest.
Do what you need to
I'm
do.
identifying myself as a police officer.
So do what you need to do.
leave.
I am leaving.
You need to leave.
I am leaving.
Or you
You're
will be
such a
placed
tough guy.
under arrest.
You're not going to do it then. Do it.
Turn around.
Do it. I'm leaving.
Okay, put your
I'm leaving.
hands behind your
I
back.
am leaving.
Turn around. Hands
Not
behind your
resisting.
back.
I'm not resisting.
Don't
Nope.
resist.
I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting.
You were warned multiple times.
I'm leaving. I'm making my way to my car. I will be holding a peaceful protest on Wednesday, July 1st.
What do you think? Good or not good? Trespass law doesn't say here, doesn't say under the penal law that they're required, that law enforcement is required to warn you. However, it says 140.10 criminal trespass third degree. A person is guilty of criminal trespass in the third degree when he knowingly enters or remains unlawfully in a building or upon real property. Now, I know as far as we're concerned, when it comes to when we used to do criminal trespass, when we used to do TAP, we had the TAP program inside of all these buildings. We were required to tell you that you have to leave or you will be placed under arrest. Now, as per NYPD policy, the way I was trained, what he did, I wouldn't have made the arrest for. I would have just said, get the hell out of here. Yeah, whatever. Leave or you're under arrest. I wouldn't have made that arrest, would you?
No, but we're both from NYPD.
True.
See, I think it's different in I mean, I still wouldn't have made the arrest even if somebody made me a Suffolk cop. Yeah. Would I made the arrest? No. Okay. But the issue is that in places like Suffolk County or places outside in New York City where the public tends to be more pro law enforcement, the cops have less of a tolerance for things like this, you know. I think if he was a New York if this was the NYPD PBA, would Reyes be arrested? Nope, he would not. Okay, I think it's Suffolk County, and they have less of a tolerance for it because it's pro police. It's they vote more conservative. They're more conservative leaning, and therefore they assume that the public is is more aware of these laws, and they don't give the public the room they do in places like New York City, where we all assume where it seems to me that government assumes the public are idiots here, and you need like multiple warnings. You need multiple warnings. You need me to point a sign in your face. You need, you know how many questions you're going to be asked by a DA's office when you're bringing that trespass. Did you warn him? Did you tell him to leave? What was his response? And so it's different.
So here's the site. Here's outside the building. So it looks like they got. So I guess they're making money because they're doing pretty good. They bought this building. It looks like they own it, right? Because it's a PBA office complex.
It's a pretty big building. I've driven past it a couple of times I think you could see it from the LIE.
Yeah. So I mean, good on the union for investing properly, not spending a ton of money, actually having money come in. But if you look on there, there's multiple businesses. So it's a public office. So that's one. And then the only other sign that's out there is just this notice, that you're under surveillance, basically. That's it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
also think of it, John. The paperwork there must have been like that, like three pieces of paper, in New York City. The difference in paperwork and the time to process that arrest. Yeah.
Well, in Staten Island, it was pretty good. I heard Staten Island, and I heard Manhattan was similar. And I did call someone in Manhattan. I'm lying. Called someone in Manhattan once. But it was pretty similar. But when I became a sergeant, I went to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
My guys brought in a trespass, and they had like a stack of paper, and I go, "What is this?" Yeah. And they're like, "What do you mean? This is the trespass affidavit. We got to sign. You got to witness it." Blah blah. I'm like, "What the hell is that?" They're like, "Yeah, no, this is how we do it in Brooklyn." I'm like, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
Totally ridiculous. But sitting here from an NYPD perspective and watching that, it does not appear to be a good arrest to me. I wouldn't want to take that arrest, and honestly, I don't know how the courts in New York. I agree with you that Suffolk County is not New York City, and it's much more pro-police, and they have a less tolerance for lawbreakers. I totally get it, but I mean, I definitely want to, and I don't think it's even that they're going to be quicker to arrest someone there. I think they really weren't thinking properly. And I think, again, it goes to like the level of intelligence of a lot of these unions, because I personally like the Suffolk County PBA. I think they do a great job at representing their officers. I think that they fight back, they push back against a lot of stuff. But, I always wonder, it's easy to say when you're in a politically friendly environment to do that. Right? When you're not in a politically friendly environment like New York City, then I wonder how you'll act. Will you look more like the NYPD unions? And to me, you're putting the arresting officer, you're putting yourself, and you're putting all of your board officers in a really bad spot by doing this. He has 1 million followers on YouTube. He's not a violent individual. What his gig is. He wants to take you to court. He wants to poke holes in the holes in the legal system, in the court system, and in your interpretation of the law and in your knowledge. And I believe that he got the exact response that he was hoping for. On top of that, they confiscated his truck. And I pulled the video down, but they confiscated his truck and they dragged his truck, and it looks like the wheels on his truck are damaged. So it looks like his billboard truck's super damaged now. So he has another lawsuit on that one. They had his keys. There was no reason that the truck had to be damaged. The way they just dragged it out. So, I mean, to me, it's just really not a nuanced position, a really dumb position. It makes cops look bad. And I think that was, honestly, I think they handed him a payday. Now, if you're going to get the courts to side with you because you're going to call Kathy Hochul and you're going to give her your endorsement, then whatever. In my opinion, that's not how it's done. It's just not.
Yeah, I think there's a large argument here. Just because you can't arrest somebody doesn't mean you should. I think it's kind of like a waste of it. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of police resources. Just because you could arrest somebody over any stupid, often stupid laws that are still on the books. I'm not saying trespassing is stupid, right? I'm just saying that, when you go through the books, you can arrest people for almost anything, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think this was basically a waste of time, and I agree with you. If this was New York City, that arrest ain't going nowhere. Okay. I think that arrest makes their PBA, it makes them look a little bad. But keep in mind here, we're also looking at it from the view of people who grew up in New York City, and I'm sure there are people in Suffolk County who look at it differently. But that's why I say I think it's a waste of resources, because even if you think it was okay, I think there are better things they could have been doing rather than wasting time and certainly, damaging his vehicle as a consequence of that arrest. Yeah, I think it's funny how the laws apply differently depending on where you are, even within a state or within counties that are like just mere a couple miles away from each other. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I do want to bring this up though, because I think it's important. Like he's obviously gonna hold a protest now. He's got a lot of followers. He's got a lot of people that usually turn out for him. So
At 1 p.m.
I just want to get to his truck too, because I think it's important, because it's just a really bad look.
There is a
Dude.
parking
Honestly, it
ride
was
down
dumb.
the road from the head.
I'm not going on all this. I don't care. Blah, blah, blah. All right, here we go.
You look in the window reflection, you can make out the silhouette of me backing up while being pursued by these thugs. Approximately 10 minutes later, uniformed Suffolk County police officers arrived on the scene, and after pleading with them to loosen the handcuffs, they eventually did. All of the uniformed officers were wearing body cameras, so I will be getting that footage very soon. One of the officers went to my billboard truck to turn off the engine, and after some time, I was transported to the Suffolk County Police 3rd Precinct, where both of my hands were chained to a table for 7 hours as I was being processed on the charge of criminal trespassing in the 3rd degree, which carries up to 6 months in the county jail. During that 7 hours, I watched individuals arrive at the precinct after me and be processed before me. I was clearly being punished and tortured. While I sat in lockup, the Suffolk County Police Union had my billboard truck impounded without turning off the diesel generator powering the LED screens. So I don't know at this point if it is damaged or not. I have to take it to get evaluated. The next day, I paid $1,000 to get it out of impound. There is my big, beautiful LED billboard truck here. Look at the wheels.
This is an urgent warning for any.
So you see that? The way they dragged it out of there? That's bad, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the point of it. They should just wave to him and tell him hello. How you doing? You know, have a nice day, and just keep it moving. You know,
I would have gave him my business card and been like, "Get out of here. See you later. Get off here before we lock you up." All right. No, I'm not coming on your show. I don't want to come on your show, but appreciate it. Thanks. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Park the thing across the street over there. Keep it. I like seeing my face. Like,
Mhm.
I just think it's a bad look, dude. You're representing cops. You're going to get cops in trouble if they follow what you did. And if the cops acted the same way that the board did, they'd have a bigger problem. They'd have a much bigger problem because they don't have the funding and they don't have the protection. And now they got to rely on you for that. You know, so I think it set a bad precedent. I don't think it was a good look. That's my opinion. You know, do I think it's a big deal? I do think it's a big deal. You damage the guy's property. I do. And I think ultimately you gave him exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted exactly what he got, you know, and he gave into it. And I do it too. Look, I'm guilty of it too, right? I say a lot of stuff on here. I get a lot of people in the chat. They throw bait at me to say certain things, and I bite. But you know, I think as cops we got to be better than that. That's it. I think that's it. Like,
Well, that's why I always say you need to have a measured, proportional response to the public. You know, I mean, you know who the threats are out there. You know, I mean, those guys aren't like rookies who don't know what they're doing. You know, those guys look like veteran cops, and they're certainly older cops. Okay, you know who the threats are out there. I mean, I know who to waste my time on. I know who not to waste my time on, and who I should really go after. And to me, a lot of these, you know, when these law enforcement auditors cross the line, right? We see it all the time in the city, but that, you know, when they reach that mark, and that's when you take it up to a different level, you know. Until you get to that point, I mean, to me, it's like, yeah, all right, you recorded me, okay, good, have a nice day. Who cares, you know? Well, you know when they cross the line, and to me, you know, I just don't. I mean, he was trespassing, yeah, but to me, it doesn't really cross the line where you got to waste your time on a guy like that, you know. I again, I think we need to have a measured, proportional response to the public, because you know we're living in times where people are more cognizant of their rights, and you will get a lot of these auditors. Okay, so what are you gonna do? Arrest them all? You know, just because you can? You know, so
yeah. So I mean, look, here's the problem, right? Like, I think that, like, we don't have a measured response because there is no standard, like, on dealing with these auditors, and there's no standard of law enforcement on dealing with any of this, whether it's protests, whether it's people who are harassing and intimidating cops, whether it's these, you know, anything you want to think of, any spectrum of this whole recording debate, recording police, content police, making content around police. There's really been no standard. We don't even have the same standard in the state. 100% not in the city, not in the boroughs, definitely not nationwide. And I think that's the problem, is there's really no boundaries have been given for anybody. And like, there's not been those boundaries just haven't been set. And that's why I say, I think that, like, I don't think this is hard. And I think you could come up with policy and training to deal with this very simply and very easily. And honestly, it's all rooted in common sense. It should be all rooted in common sense. And
Yeah.
Leo Firpini, he says, John, I would argue that it's a quasi public space. Just to go back on the lobby. If people are disruptive, you don't you agree we have the right to eject them? 100%. In every public space, anybody that is impeding on anything else, causing disruption, stopping you from doing your job, interfering with anyone else's ability to interact with the police that day, being disorderly, doing anything like that, 100%, people like that have the right to, the police should have the authority to remove them. And if they don't leave, then they should be arrested, those individuals, and that is trespass. You know what I mean? Then they get trespassed. What I'm saying is you're saying it's a public space. At the same time, you're saying it's a public space. You're saying it's a private space. At the same time, you're saying it's a public space. So it doesn't make sense. Like when it concerns that ruling. Now, with private buildings, I think it's the same thing, honestly, because you have this building. It's a private building, but it's accessible to the public. I think it's the same thing. You go in there, they tell you XYZ. We don't want you recording in here. They have a little bit more leeway because it's private. You're not allowed to record in here. You're doing so, we're going to ask you to leave. And the minute they do that, and you say I'm not leaving, then that's trespass, right? But what he did specifically was he baited them. He said, all right, I'm leaving. And he just kept backing up and walking out the door as he was engaging them verbally. Physically, he was moving away. Verbally, he was continuing to engage them while we're warning you, we're warning you, we're warning you. And he had them. He dragged them out. He got the exact response he wanted. And so in that scenario, should he had walked in and them said leave and he said no, boom, he's under. I totally get it. I'm with you 100%. He didn't do that. And he didn't. And look, he's good. I'm not going to lie. The kid is good. I'm not going to say I might have acted the same way. I get baited a lot myself. But when we go back to the precinct, it's 100% a public facility. It's 100% a community space. Like we said, you're telling people to come in here, hang out, use our Wi-Fi, rest, play video games, watch TV. Oh, but you can't record in here? But we could record you? Doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. So this debate isn't going anywhere because honestly, we've evolved so much since the start of policing. We've evolved so much since the NYPD formed in 1845. But I think in this area, we're really novices at it, and we haven't really looked too far into this, and we haven't came up with good policy around this. Because at the same point, if Reyes would have started pushing camera in people's faces and ignoring them and not moving when they were telling him to move, I would say that he should get arrested immediately. But that's not what I saw.
Yeah. It's important to keep in mind that so far the courts have ruled that precinct lobbies are non-public forums, and they said that government has a strict, the government has a more of a framework to restrict certain activities from that non-public forum, right? But the problem here is that the public's view of a police station is changing. Okay. And the public is more cognizant of their rights these days. We have law enforcement auditors who make a living challenging cops and challenging your knowledge of the law, your knowledge and application of the law. So with that said, I think that ruling is going to need to be changed, to be updated to the present social the broader social thinking about this and the technology. I think I think the issue is that in places like Suffolk County, again, cops have more leeway to you know more leeway to strictly interpret the law, just to strictly apply the law, than in places like New York City, where you'll be questioned 10 ways to Sunday about like your arrest. And I do think though that Suffolk County is going to need to come in more into line with the thinking of cops in the city, because you're only going to get more law enforcement auditors because of things like YouTube, you know, and more people, as certainly as people lose their jobs in traditional sectors, you're going to get more people who say, you know what, so and so makes a living off YouTube. Maybe I could try doing it too. So you're only going to get more, and you're going to get more in places where there are less, which is places like Suffolk County, where I'm sure in the city you can go find a million people who are willing to challenge cops just to go viral. So I think this debate is going to continue, and I think places like Suffolk need to be more prepared for it. But just to go back to the police, the lobbies itself, I would like somebody to confirm this, but I managed to find a picture of the ninth precinct. I don't think I've ever been to the ninth myself.
I think this is it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it.
Yeah, but if you're watching this, for our civilians out there, if you're watching this, this would be the view you see inside the lobby as you enter the precinct.
But this is a very unique precinct. There's not like many that are set up like this.
Well,
Like this is a pretty weird one where like you're right accessible to the desk.
The
Like
19th
this isn't a
kinda like this,
traditional
though.
lobby.
Yeah.
You know, the 1900s, early
Uh-huh.
1900s precinct you're walking into, or even the 1970s. And I think this one is a newer precinct. I think it's like in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
this is a weird one. There's not many lobbies that are set up like this.
Well, to be fair, like the 19th is kind of like this too, where the desk really isn't that far. Although I think the 19th has a little partition. It's kind of like on the opposite side where the desk is on the left and the gate is on the
Yeah.
right, and there's like a
Yeah.
partition up there. So it's not too far off. I think a lot of the precincts built around a similar time frame have the same designs. So if this was built in the 70s or early 80s, then it's going to look like this, and other precincts in that same time frame are going to kind of look like this too. Whereas like the older precincts are going to look more like say who's an older one? The older ones kind of have the gates here and have a little bit of space before you get to the desk. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this is still pretty open, you know? And it's different from precincts like this one in Miami, where you're coming into the lobby and you see, you're met with a petition, and all the workers, the receptionist or cops who are taking reports, or PAAs, the civilian workers, are behind that partition, you know? And if you got to take a report that gives them any sort of private information or details that should not be overheard by the public, it's going to be beyond these walls, And this is one in Michigan. I think it's Detroit Lakes, but you get the point though. You see how you come in here, and there's a petition, and we briefly talked about safety earlier, but to me this is a lot better, considering we've had instances where perps enter precincts, not just here. It's happened in Detroit too, where a guy entered the city of Detroit, and their precinct is more like our older ones where it's open, and he began blasting at the cops behind the desk and the sergeant behind the desk. And in fact, he jumped over the desk and got into a close range firefight with the sergeant, I believe. But yeah, I see you there, Billy Blasto. You're correct. Ballistic glass. You're right. It's these precincts are more in line with the security concerns of modern day policing, right? But you look at the 116 now. This is the newest precincts in the newest precinct in the NYPD, right? What you're looking at here is I believe just on the other side of the wall, or the gate, the precinct gate. In fact, in fact, no, I'm going to change that. I think the gate is right behind the politicians there on the right side, right? So you can see it's pretty fairly open. And if you wanted to take a shot at the desk sergeant, you very well could, you know? A lot of times when you go in there for the community council meeting, it's only the desk sergeant that you're seeing there. There may be one cop strolling around here, but there's only the desk sergeant there with his head down in the book, you know, taking notes in the precinct log, right? So same thing with here. I just think this is just a problem, and it's not that helpful to the public that they have to give information to officers here that can be overheard by other members of the public who happen to be, you know, waiting around in the lobby, and it's not helpful to the security concerns of cops working there, you know.
I don't think safety's in mind for anyone, and I think it's been used as a crutch. I don't think that when we talk in NYPD precincts that they care about safety. We just showed you the 116, the most newly designed facility, and what was the attention to detail there is that it was community friendly, that it was accessible, that it was open, that it didn't feel blocked off. So not the safety of officers and not the safety of crime victims. Not concerned with it. I mean, that's not there. That's not what that is, you know? And again, if we had competent policies in place, you wouldn't have people rushing up on NYPD cops, pointing cameras in their face and not getting arrested. And then you wouldn't have guys winning lawsuits and getting, you know, coming in and like baiting cops and getting them because they'd be well competently trained and able to address that situation and handle it. Be like, whatever, this guy's here, it's not a big deal, whatever. Listen, get out of here, go park across the street, you get arrested. Now he doesn't comply, you arrest him. You know, but we don't have that competent response because we've never really had the conversation, and we're just starting to have it. So I think, I think it's going to be ongoing for a while. Look, NYPD is not really going to be able to address any of those concerns. I think the 120, I think they did a decent job in the lobby. I mean, it's horrendous if you're a crime victim and you got to go in there because they're sitting in there. But like when you walk in, that's a very old precinct. The steps are huge. You know, like it's sitting up on a hill. When you walk in that lobby, they kind of section you off, and you got to walk in, and then you got to talk to an intake person, and then they may or may not let you behind. But more often than not, you're sitting right in that lobby. And so then you're going to tell me, should anyone be able to record in there? I'm going to say no, but nobody should be listening to you talk to the cops either in there. Like it's a pretty bad setup. I mean, it's done well to protect the safety of the cops. But as far as when we talk about the setup of crime victims or people walking in, it's horrendous. You know, so I mean, at least there was an effort put there to do that. You know, it really hard in an old precinct like that, and I'm not sure if it was made a historic land site or not, and then that would create a whole nother list of problems. But you know, like that command was put there that, you know, people were riding horses around. You know, there was never a thought of any of this stuff. There was no ADA. There wasn't, you know, concerns of crime victims, medical information, privacy information. There wasn't a lot of, you know, it was really the early days. There was literally still forms on Staten Island, like working operational forms. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, dude. It's an interesting conversation, but like if I'm gonna walk into the precinct and I want to redress government for whatever reason, I should have the right to record immediately. Anything past there, I'm going to say absolutely not. And any violation of that, I think should be prosecuted, and I think it should be trespassed as well. Right? But immediately there, I'm having an issue with the police, or I'm having an issue I want the police to address. I'm a tax-paying citizen. What is the difference between me going to them right there or calling 911 and them showing up to my house? There's literally no difference there, other than the setup of these precincts is horrific. And you're going to use the crime victims who you're not protecting as a crutch to say, oh, well, this is why you can't record it. And because you have no competent policy to deal with people who are a lot more violent and tumultuous than a Sean Reyes is. Mute it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I was going to say, I was trying to share the screen and show you guys why I think, these are all issues that are gonna pop up again. And one of those is because of, let's see if I can show you, is this, right? It's called the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Somebody in the chat mentioned it, but it's, let me see if I can play it. Somebody in chat mentioned it, but I'm sure some of you guys know it. But these are glasses that also record. They have cameras on it. So think of it: technology only gets better, or these chips only get smaller to the point where you're not going to be able to discern whether they even have a processor in it. And if somebody could just go inside a precinct and just hang out here, how do you, I mean, we have to consider that if they can hear it and see it, that they're possibly recording it now, since this technology is going to become more prevalent in society. So again, it's an issue that's going to come up again, and we just are not prepared for any of that future. And for us to be prepared, it's going to cost a couple $2 billion, which we all know the city does not have right now. So,
well, but I think it's bigger than the money. I mean, because look what we did in the 116, and then we didn't address any of those concerns.
yeah.
It's going to create we need some competence other than just money. Like, we need some competence in governance. So I'm curious to see how it pans out. Like I said, I think that decision wasn't the end all be all, because there's still the First Amendment challenges, and I think they lose 100% of the time. And that, as long as the case is put together competently. And then the other thing is what happens with Reyes and the Suffolk County case, because that's another thing. Two different issues, private, public, right? But it's similar.
Yeah, it's similar. Gonna come up again.
But I'm curious what's going to happen there too. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on that as that goes on.
And also, if government is going to be, if the judicial branch is going to be trying to fill the gaps for government weaknesses, for the job that government should have done, which is update these precincts and not being competent about it, understand the current issues involving safety and the social norms, current social trends, right? If the judicial branch is going to be covering up for that and making these rulings that effectively give government a pass, then that means that we're going to be going through, things are going to get kind of interesting in the future, because the infrastructure of cities are just falling apart, especially older cities, and it kind of makes me wonder if other issues aside from police related issues are going to come up, where the judicial branch is going to rule in favor of government, just because the government right now has put itself in that position where it hasn't done its job, and doing its job now would cost untold amounts of money. But yeah, like John said, we're wondering to see how this is going to play out long term.
All right, people. Yeah, well, we got a few more topics to get through. Before we do that, we're just going to have a word from our sponsor. It's a time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. The 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primary election outcomes and the biggest political storylines as they happen. This one's an interesting one. Will Stephen A. Smith run for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028? Right now, Stephen A. is currently trading at 23%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $353.83 if he just runs. He puts his name in the hat to run for the Democratic nomination. There's been a lot of talk about that. President Trump actually weighed in on that a few months back. So that's a curious one there. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app, and use code FINEST to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI. Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Price, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Yeah, I certainly hope not. But
what do you think? Do you think he's going to run? He was talking about it too, dude.
Yeah, if you noticed him, he's kind of shifted his political stance, by the way. This is a guy who was seemingly left last election, and now he's shifting his way back to the center, or center right. So I think he's 100% making moves for some political future.
So here's the after party, Washington Square Park, a pride parade. Gerber's calling the shots. One, I don't think the Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters should be calling the shots out in the field. I just don't. Unless he's watching it from a distance, I don't think he has any business in here, my personal opinion. And you're going to see why I don't think that. So they're totally outnumbered. And there's an earlier video where you see him direct, like he's under the guy on the pole that you saw that was twerking on top of the pole. Cops are surrounded, totally outnumbered. And what do you see? Now they move in to make their arrest. And what's happening? They're getting glass bottles chucked at them from all over the place. And the whole time of this video, if you listen in, I shut the sound off now, but if you go back and watch it, it's just bottle after bottle. There's a longer version of that video that I didn't play. But again, I continuously say, like, these civilians have way too much say and too much direction over the NYPD. And he really put those cops in a very, very dangerous situation. Really poorly executed, poorly done job. Shout out to the cops for following through and getting the job done and getting out of there. But he could have got them seriously hurt there. He's an idiot. I don't know why Gerber is directing anything at that scene whatsoever. It should have been like, all right, yeah, Commissioner, we'll get him in a little while when you get about 100 more cops here and clear this out so we don't get killed in here.
Yeah. We talked about Gerber before, actually we talked about what he was doing and why he was commenting on the operational matters of the NYPD. We talked about it when he was at the city council hearing. And I think this guy is his name has come up many times before. it's come up in the Donlin lawsuit as well, about basically the outsized role he plays in the department. And I don't get it myself. There shouldn't be any there really shouldn't be any civilians there. Considering that he's not only not properly equipped to deal with that or trained, I don't think that a deputy commissioner of legal matters should be actually there as well. And also, the department has lawyers that are also cops, right? So, we have many of those. So why do we need Gerber actually there? I don't get it. But John, that this whole pride parade has become like a carnival. I don't understand what does what all those people doing there had to do with the pride. I mean, it's kind of become like the West Indian Day Parade or uh, yeah. I had to run to Manhattan quickly late yesterday, and I saw some of the people there, and I thought that's one of the thoughts that came to me. I'm like, wait a second, what does any of this got to do with it's almost become like a carnival, But anyway, that's a tangent. So
Well, it was like a whole weekend of events. I went into the city and
Yeah.
I took my daughter to see a play on Broadway. She wanted to see The Outsiders or whatever. It was a good play, actually. And where did I park? I parked on 44th between 5th and Madison. Right? Am I right? Wherever it was on 44th. It was like right over there, but then I couldn't get up. And I'm like, I wanted to just park in a parking lot over there. I wound up finding parking on the street and just use the New York City parking app, which is horrendous, by the way. I hate it. For some reason, it cannot remember anything, whatever. But so I park on the street. I use the app. I have to walk up 3 avenues to get to where we got to get. Not a big deal. I got to cross through Times Square. That was probably the busiest part. And so I say to the cops, like, why is this all blocked off? Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, it's the Dyke Parade. I'm like, what? The Dyke Parade. And this was Saturday. I was like, and so then I'm like, I walk, I was like, and obviously they knew me. So I was like, was that slang? Like, what were they talking about? And I look it up and it's like, no, that is the Dyke Parade. So you have a whole weekend where the city's shut down. And I'm like, oh, that's good. We can't celebrate the 250th birthday of America because we can't allot the police resources for that. But you could have multiple parades celebrating somebody's sexual preference. I'm like, that's ridiculous. The whole city, like, it was the whole of was shut down. I couldn't get up, and I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, look, anytime you have a parade, I don't care what it's for. Anytime you have a festivity and you're shutting things down, there's going to be bad actors that are going to come to take advantage of it. We're going to go to the city. We're going to get high. We're going to get drunk. We're going to rob people. We're going to beat people up. We're going to do dumb things, part of the gay pride parade, though, and I spoke about this before, is GOAL, which is the Gay Officers Action League. They stood on the sidelines of the parade because for years they've been banned from celebrating the pride parade, which is there to promote inclusivity and not judge people. Yet they don't want so this year they were kind enough to say, oh, you know what, gay NYPD police officers could actually protest this year, but they just can't. I'm sorry, they could march in the parade this year, not protest. They could march in the parade. They could even march in the parade in their uniforms, but they can't do it with their guns. They're good enough to protect us, but they can't march with their guns on them. And so Tish stood on the sidelines with GOAL, who kind of protested the parade. If you see right behind the head, it says Bit 1, and it's the GOAL symbol. I personally think it's disgraceful. And like I said, whoever gave the permit for that, I would have been like, yeah, no problem. Hire your own security. Hire your own security, and you're only allowed to do XYZ. Your parade's going to be much smaller as a result of that, because we don't, if you're against having cops protect you in uniform with firearms, then, we can't help you. Oh, and by the way, the organizers of this event, if anything happens, you're going to be held criminally, civilly responsible for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a couple comments in there. Where is it? Is it? Yeah, that's hilarious, Jason. But yes, I did have to go into Manhattan for unrelated, yeah, for an unrelated incident. Right. What else? Yeah, I saw a comment in there about Carnival. Yeah, yeah, I do think it's become that, and it's not just somebody in there said it's become a carnival for gay people, and yes, this is the comment. It's not just gay people, you know. I saw plenty of I saw plenty of straight people that had paint all over their face, you know. And anyway, I think we're going down a tangent, a different tangent here. But I was just wondering, like, when did this become like carnival? Yeah. But to go back to the topic of Gerber, I think I think that one of the biggest problems the NYPD has is all these civilians who are, they they've they're too big for their britches, you know. And I think we need to go back to a department that's run by uniform people, you know, and where the civilians are just advisors. Yeah, I know we have deputy commissioners, but I'm just saying, man, when it comes to the operations, you know, uniform should be calling the shots. There should have been a chief there calling the shots and Gerber taking orders from that chief, or Gerber advising that chief, not the other way around. In fact, Gerber shouldn't even be there at all, because we have cops who are trained as who are lawyers, who are trained for situations like that, who are prepared for situations like that, meaning they have protection, vests, and what they should be wearing, helmets, right? And they know how to deal with crowds in situations like that. Not a civilian who can easily have gotten hit in the head himself with a bottle and be injured. And considering he's the head lawyer for the department, I think it behooved the department not to have their head lawyer be in the hospital with a head injury. You know. Um, Also, I just want to say that the fact that bottles are being thrown there goes back to what I said, that those 8-point caps need to go. We need caps, like bump caps, caps that have some sort of uh, even though it's basic, some sort of a head protection, because at any moment's notice, it seems these days items are being thrown at cops, including bottles. And yeah, it may not save you from having to go to the hospital, but it's going to do a lot better than the 8-point cap, which will do once if you were to, God forbid, you were to get hit in the head with a bottle. You know, that's something I think you, LaPetri, need to think about. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, what is he doing? He has no idea what he's doing. Like
Yeah.
any competent person there, and I think all the cops were like, I think we need to back out of here. Like, should have backed out. Like, who gives about this idiot on the pole? Like, if he falls, we'll rush in and we'll get an ambulance. Like, that arrest wasn't, that wasn't necessary to risk the officers' lives and endanger and actually escalate the situation. It was a terrible call, dude. They should have backed out and came in with more manpower, or waited for more manpower to arrive before they did anything. Honestly, any police action, like they were surrounded. That was a terrible call. He has no business. Here's another thing I thought that was pretty funny. Community affairs cops are driving. I think like the sanitation police. I forget who's on here. Watched the video early yesterday, and you had protesters on bikes with or parade goers or revelers, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to say that they were protesters with yellow vests on, and they form a line. They form a wedge. This is what the Strategic Response Group does to help move crowds and control crowds during periods of civil unrest. They have a bike unit, and they use the bikes to move the crowd. They use them almost as like moving barriers. New York City Councilman Chiosei, member of the Democratic Socialists of America, he wants to ban NYPD officers from being able to deploy SRG bike cops or use bikes during periods of civil unrest, to protect your First Amendment activity. But his buddies over here have absolutely no issue using that to block the NYPD. Watch this. This thing infuriated me. Watch this.
They're gonna be right there. They're not gonna run the people over. They're with us. You understand? It's not that hard. It's hard.
They're policing the police. You heard the community affairs cop. He walks up. They're with us, and they're telling him, no, we're just going to block you. You, as a New York City Police Department and city officials, cannot go anywhere. That is, by definition, OGA. For those of you that aren't aware, that's obstructing governmental administration. When you're preventing a I don't know how they word it, and not just a police officer, but a civil servant from performing their duty. It's an arrestable offense. It's a misdemeanor. And honestly, them doing any form of that, this should be a no tolerance policy. This is where you need those Suffolk County PBA guys. And what we get is NYPD community affair guy dangling his handcuffs and not placing anyone in it. And you're going to watch this. This video is 2:52. Watch how long this goes on for.
It's not a big deal.
Juan, did you ever take your handcuffs out and not arrest somebody and not put them on somebody?
Yeah.
You're just walking around with handcuffs out. Now, I think I learned that like day one in the academy. Like, don't ever do that.
No, he is in community affairs. To be fair.
I don't care what you have to say, okay?
Huh.
It's not that big of a deal.
He goes to arrest someone, doesn't arrest them. Guy flails his arm, walks away. Then they move him.
It's not a big deal to push people around. Sir?
What do you think, Marlon? They're still going. Now instead of arresting anyone, they just push them out of the way now.
Well, I get that they may not want to arrest anybody, depending on, what their assignment is, and, they got to get to their wherever. But I don't understand why some of those cops don't get out of the car and get these people the hell out of the way, I hate that we have to negotiate now. Instead of giving people lawful orders, we have to now beg them to do it, Instead of giving them lawful orders and having them follow, we got to beg them, please move, please. It's a little ridiculous now, And I think it's also going to get somebody hurt, by the way.
They replaced the police, bro. They said, no, you can't go down there. It's a safety issue. And the police are explaining to them, no, it's okay. We're not going to run anyone over. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, dude, it was pathetic. Dude, it was pathetic all around. You came out with the handcuffs like you were going to arrest somebody, then you should have arrested someone. If you were coming out, like, get the hell out of the way. We're coming through here right now. And they just started pushing people out of the way. I would have been okay with it. But when I watched that, it's like, all right, first you went to arrest them and then you arrested nobody. And then you start pushing people and then you don't document any of it. And all these guys think, yeah, when the cops go to lock me up, I could just flail my arms and then they won't lock me up anyway because I could just walk away after that. It really, honestly, another poor job, poorly executed job. And there were numerous supervisors over there. Numerous. So I'm not just blaming the community affairs guys.
Yeah. I saw the lieutenant just walking around.
Yeah, they were waiting for Gerber, probably.
Yeah. It's that whole like I said before, I hate like when you have like a crowd. In this case, the crowd wasn't that bad, but I just hate standing around and not doing anything when you have like a crowd that hates you, and you have tensions boiling there. I think you're just waiting for, something to be thrown at you, and I talked before about not having head protection. Considering that, I especially think something needs to be done quickly instead of standing around and standing around and hoping that these people are eventually going to walk off or not escalate the situation. I think that's, I don't like it at all.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. Did you see Streets blog? Two things they put out recently. One, they put out that the commanding officer of the 120 precinct said that James G. Vincente is grounded and can't drive a vehicle pending the internal affairs investigation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. There was a apparently there was a community council meeting in the precinct that officer works in, that officer Giovasante works in, and Streets blog had their plans in the in the audience, and they asked the CO, they asked them if there's any sort of punishment for him, and the CO responds that he's under investigation by IAB, and he's kind of grounded. Which means for those civilians watching, grounded means you can't drive a vehicle. I've mentioned this story before, but I remember when I was on midnights, I crashed a vehicle. It was 6 a.m. and 6 a.m. you after being on patrol the whole night. In fact, I don't even think we had a earlier meal. I think we had a late meal that morning, right? And I was a little tired, so I crashed the vehicle and I was grounded for a couple months after, like 3 months. So that means my partner was operating the vehicle, and I was the recorder. So in this case, Giovasante is grounded as per the CO. I see your comment, HFL. I will neither confirm nor deny that, even though much time has passed since then. But anyway, Giovasante is grounded, right? So I had a problem with that because I think the CO should have simply said that, listen, we know what you're trying to do, Streets blog, right? But the CO should have said, Giovasante is entitled to due process just like everybody else, okay? And because what they're trying to do is punish Giovasante for having those speeding tickets, and without having to rehash those same arguments that we had before, which is basically that you can't automate due process with the speeding cameras and the red light cameras, right? That's why the ticket goes to your vehicle and not you. Streets blog wants to change that, where you still get punished for a ticket that your vehicle gets, and that leads down the road to smart cities and what happens in China, where the cameras give you the ticket, right? There's no due process because their laws are different. They have no constitution. We have a constitution here. We have due process here. So I think the CO should have just responded, Giovasante is entitled to due process like everybody else, and that's that. Next question. You shouldn't be going into any sort of ridiculous nonsense that they're trying to do, that any ridiculous arguments that they're trying to conduct.
Yeah, I would have just told them call DCPI. Honestly, I wouldn't have said a word. Call Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. They get paid a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't do anything on duty, so what are we asking him for? Yeah.
I don't know nothing about it. What do you mean? It's let them drag you a little bit. Who cares? I just thought it was ridiculous, dude. I was like, you've been dragging this kid like crazy, and then what? Oh, now he can't drive a car, and again, he didn't violate any laws. Like, we're just making things up because people got butthurt. It's like, oh, well, it was egregious, though. It was egregious. It's like, okay, well, he didn't violate any law, though. So I don't know. I just thought that was the other thing that they came out about Streets blog was there was an unmarked Subaru that belonged to the NYPD's community response team, right? So they go out, they're in uniform mostly, and they're using unmarked cars. And that car had 38,000 in unpaid speed and red light camera tickets. And none of the reckless driving that was done by cops, they say, the vehicle was claimed to be part of any police emergency. So, one, I'm going to say this, community response team's busy. We spoke about them having a different set of rules and a different set of guidelines than the rest of NYPD officers. For $38,000 in fines to go unpaid to this one particular vehicle is a fault of absolutely the leadership. It stems from the chief of department's office all the way down to the CO of the community response team. And I'm sure if you look at the CRT team's cars, there's a lot of stuff that is going to be not go the normal way of things. Like I said, when I was a cop, I had to pay tickets sometimes for things that were on duty. I told you guys about a time where I literally, a 31, a robbery of a commercial establishment. We ran in there. We like triple parked the car, left the doors open, everything. We're wrestling around on the ground with a guy who just robbed a convenience store, an armed guy in a convenience store. And I came out, and the traffic agent, who now is probably a member of the NYPD, and all those years will count thanks to the Pat Gordon bill, gave us a summons. Didn't see if we were okay, like running around in the store, destroying the store as we're trying to place someone under arrest. Instead, he felt the need to give our unmarked car summons. That one I fought for with the chief of department's office, and there was a letter saying that it was part of our official duties. I'm going to say that most of those cars, most of those tickets, probably a lot of them are completely justified, dude, because I drove an unmarked car the majority of my career. And when I was tailing someone or when I was monitoring people, I violated a lot of traffic laws, not because I wanted to and I didn't do it recklessly, but because I had to surveil and to keep up and to watch what was happening. And I'm sure a lot of that's true. And then I'm sure there's a lot of dumb things in there that were uncalled for and shouldn't have happened either. But it should absolutely 100% doesn't fall on the rank and file of the community response team, even if they were doing it. It was the supervision or lack thereof from the chief of department's office and from the community response team, because, like I said, under Shell and under Kaz, I believe they had an attitude of we could do anything and the rules don't apply to us. And that stems from leadership. That's not their own fault. They were young kids. We said that from the get-go. They were young kids. We went through their supervisors at one point, and they were very immature and not too smart. And they shouldn't have been leading young kids like that in a really high-speed, fast-paced unit like that. So I Streets blog, in my opinion, of course, will bark up the wrong tree because they really don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, it's important to keep in mind, guys, that Streets blog, again, it's a propaganda operation, right? That works on behalf of Mark Gordon. He's a billionaire hedge fund owner on Wall Street, right? He's the founder of Streets blog, and he is the founder of the organization behind Streets blog. He's also involved with transportation alternatives and all that. And he's been a funder of the City of Yes program as well. So basically his hedge fund is invested in a lot of the initiatives that are tied to the City of Yes, which include the technology initiatives. So the goal of Streets blog is to kind of raise, kind of stimulate public awareness or advocacy on behalf of issues that benefit the hedge fund, right? It's propaganda masquerading as journalism, and they are not legitimate at all. Okay, they still do not care about who the top speeder is in the city, right? We still don't know that. Okay, it's not Officer Giovansanti. Okay, they don't know. I mean, we don't know, and Streets blog doesn't care to let us know because it's not conducive to their agenda, right? So in this case, I think it's them just using another another straw man to push their overall agenda, which is again uh the smart city initiative and all this technology like the super speeders, the monitoring that comes with the super speeders bill. Okay, they all they've simply proven here is that the job is kind of incompetent at you know filling out the proper paperwork in a timely manner. And although I will say that the CRT tends to get a lot more leeway than a lot of the precinct special ops units would, because I think if the special ops unit in the precincts had this many tickets on a vehicle, they would gotten a call from somebody at the borough or at 1PP. Whereas the CRT, like we told you before, gets away with a lot of things. Don't get me wrong, a lot of those guys are active and they're young and inexperienced, like John says. But it's probably because they're so active that they get a little more leeway, which you know, I, I don't really have a problem with per se, as long as we don't go crazy like they were doing with the chases and like the lieutenant who kicked the guy in the head and he got away with it, and certainly of members of that unit when they were targeting John and Eric, you know. But I have no issue with I don't necessarily have an issue with this. I again because when when you're in an unmarked and you're either following people or you're trying to get to jobs, time is you need to time is a luxury that you don't have. You don't have the time to stop at every light in Manhattan, certainly in a place like Manhattan, right? So I think this is much ado about nothing, and Streets Blog continuing their agenda.
Well, there's a couple of things here, right? Like most of those lights I said are ridiculous and they're frivolous and they're
true.
money generators.
True.
So I don't have an issue that they got them at all. I have an issue that they're unpaid. And I don't have an issue that they violated a lot of these traffic laws at all, because like I said, a lot of times you're gonna have to do that when you're performing that type of work, right? Like it's not the fact that they got them. One, it shows two things. It shows that these camera violations are completely out of control and they're everywhere. Dude, I can't wait to go back to Florida because I drive around here and it's like ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
And you can't shut it off. And my car just dings everywhere I am because
Yeah.
everywhere I am, there's a speed camera or red light camera or something else. It's like it's the most annoying thing in the world, dude. And I went out to dinner with friends the other day, and my friend's wife was like, "Yeah, I like the car, but like it just dings all the time." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because you still live in New York City." I'm like, "That's why it dings all the time." I'm like, "I drive my car in Florida, it doesn't ding in Florida. It only dings in New York." And because there's just way too many of these cameras. And so, but I do have a huge problem with their unpaid, and I have a huge problem with NYPD leadership as to why they're unpaid, why that all of our systems are failing. You know what I mean? Why all of a sudden you guys stopped being able to count for overtime? Why all of a sudden you guys weren't arresting people for misdemeanors, and now all of a sudden you're arresting and investigating for them? And why all of the things, all of the policies and things we had in place no longer apply? Like, it's simple, dude. You either have an excuse as to why you did it, and we'll write it up and we'll send it to chief of department's office, and they'll send it over to the DMV, and they'll get these summonses basically squashed, or you don't pay the summons, or you get a CD. Like, it's not hard. And like, so the fact that this even happened, I don't even think matters anymore on the rank and file cops and the sergeants in those cars or the lieutenants. It really falls on the CO of that unit, and it falls on the chief of department's office. Like they literally have someone that's all they do every day is just deal with those summonses. That's their job, and I think there's multiple people that do it. So what's going on? Is it that the camera lights are out of hand, and then what are we doing about that? And if so, what does that say for the rest of society? But like, we're just going to allow things to fall down, and like things are just gone now. So it falls on It falls on Marjorie, falls on Shell, falls on LaPetri, like, because those are the last three chief of departments, as well as the people who are in charge of the CRT. And I think that should be addressed immediately, because you're just giving more and more stuff for these people to harp over and for have legislation about. And the same's true with Reyes, just to go back on that. You're giving them more money, tax money. They're getting paid out for dumb shit. It's ridiculous. And then it's going to come out to where there's going to be legislation put in place by the Democrats, aka the socialists.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people hate that we talk about some of these issues, but really, if the department acted on a lot of these issues beforehand, then you'd prevent, there'd be less for like the law enforcement auditors to, audit, if you get ahead of it, right? But you're right, John. I saw a comment in there also from KB. KB, public outrage is what happens when the lunatics in the progressive wing see things like this. But let's not forget, there's also the silent centrist majority Democrats, right, who are kind of low information. They may not get outraged to the point where they're gonna go, protest in front of a precinct, but these people are still influenced by these campaigns. They'll read Streets Blog and think this is actual journalism, and now feel, oh yeah, you know what, these Streets Blog guys are right. And God forbid there's some ballot measure in the next election. These are the same Democrats who are going to be like, oh yeah, I saw it in Streets Blog. They're right. This is out of hand. And they're going to go along with it. So public outrage is what happens to the progressive wing, but there's a lot of silent, a lot of the silent Democrats, low information, are going to go along with it too, are going to be influenced by these campaigns. But I think there should be somebody in 1PP or wherever, whichever office, that just blanket fills out this paperwork, so we don't have to go through this. I mean, if you're in a specialized unit,
There is. It's in the chief of department's office.
Really?
There is. Yeah.
No, but don't they send something back to the special ops lieutenant or the unit
That's
CO
coming. Chief
for
of
him to
department's
fill it out?
office gets it, sends it down as a communication to the command, and it's incumbent on the chief of department's office and on the CO of that command and the ICO of that command to ensure that's coming back. And it's being taken care of, and it's being taken care of in a timely manner. And if it's not, then it's a CD and it's a fine. You got to pay for it. City's not paying for it now.
Well, I'm just saying that there should be nothing kicking back to a special ops lieutenant or the unit CO. It should just be, you ran the red light. You're in, it's different from, like, let's say you're in an admin unit in 1PP and you ran the red light. Oh, okay, what are you doing? Okay, well, what are you doing? Unless you can, it should be kicked back to them and them explain it. Okay. But I think if you're in a specialized unit like CRT or, public safety or conditions, whatever. Oh, you're in conditions. You ran a red light. Oh, okay. Check mark. That's it. Yeah.
Nah, I don't agree.
You don't think so?
No.
I think that their leeway.
Not when. I'm not giving anyone more leeway because they work. I'll give them leeway because they work, but on certain things. Not like it is what it is. Like you can't let people get out of hand. There can't be no control measures on anything. I give them more leeway because you work, but not so much more leeway because they work. Because at the same time, we had the captain, 2 lieutenants, their sergeants, and all their cops on overtime, basically running our names and doing crazy shit, like threatening us and all this other stuff. There's got to be a little bit of accountability. My thing is this: it shouldn't have been an issue. It wouldn't have been an issue if you were just keeping up with it. It wouldn't even have came out. It might have came out that it had that many amount of fines, but it wouldn't even be an issue. Should have just kept up with the paperwork. That's it. And if you're not keeping up with the paperwork, that means you're not doing your job as a supervisor. I'm sorry. It's like, no, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with that. I'm not worried about that. I don't have to do that because I go out there and I make arrests. Like, no, that's not accurate either, dude. Like, like I said, like it is what it is, man. Like it's just because things go haywire. Then you got guys not explaining and accountable for where they are. What if they were supposed to be in Staten Island that day, and then they're getting red light tickets in Queens? It's like, well, what are you doing? You won't capture it if you're giving them all this leeway, right? Like, well, why were you in Queens when you were assigned to Staten Island?
Well,
why were you parked outside this house for 4 hours? Why were you
Mhm.
upstairs on the 14th floor for 4 hours when, like,
Mhm.
were you on the casting couch? Was it leather? Like, what was it? Like, I
Well,
don't know.
I think that's a separate issue, I think it's separate, like people running names. No, that's different. You need to explain if you're running names, But I was never a big fan of like when you need this whole getting out of precinct limits. I was never a big fan of that, especially in special ops. I think you need to be now granted, if you're in conditions, you probably shouldn't have leeway to be in like 2 boroughs away, right? But certainly if you're in the FIO's office, if you might be in public safety, right? Yeah, I do believe, or CRT, I do believe you should have a little more leeway than if you're on patrol. If you're in a patrol in a sector, r- you know, I need an explanation if you're 2 commands away. If you're on the border with the other command, you're 2 blocks into the other command. Okay, that's fine. I don't think that's a big deal. We once, when I was on Midnights, we were following a LoJack, right? We were trying to locate the LoJack, and we drove into we were like 5 blocks into the 7-3 trying to get the LoJack, right? So I don't think that's a big deal at all, right? I do think cops need to be given more leeway to be cops and do their job. If you're in an enforcement unit, like in special ops, I don't think it's a big deal that you're running the light. I do think it's a big deal if you're running names without a reason to be running names, and I don't think that should be used to track and figure out, hey, why were you in this command 2 hours in front of his house, on duty. I think that's a little too much.
I don't.
I,
You're telling me a guy that's assigned to Staten Island being
Uh,
in Queens for 4 hours is not an issue? Like, that's a huge issue. You're not doing your job. You're not
well,
making an arrest in
how do you,
Queens.
how do you find out that though? How would you find out? You'd
What do
have
you
to
mean?
be.
I found out because he got 5 red light cameras because he's a moron. And he doesn't follow any traffic rules because he thinks he's better than everything.
Uh,
Because there's no accountability because you're just opening up the leeway saying, yeah, no, you go out and you make 3 arrests a month, so I'm not going to bother you. Screw those patrol guys, though. I'm going to keep, like, no, screw that. Absolutely.
no, but you see, you found out they had 5 red light cameras tickets, and then you conducted an investigation, and you probably checked out, ran all the
Because I
LPR
was
data.
able to account for them. You're assigned to Staten Island. Like, why? How that? Explain to me how you got a ticket in Queens. Explain to me what police service you were doing in Queens when you're not assigned to that borough. Explain
Yeah,
it to
but
me.
you could figure that all out if you give leeway to certain units.
You
Now-
can't because you won't be able to give them you won't because you're saying to give them leeway, so none of this stuff will be tracked and documented, and nobody will be looking at this. As opposed to when someone blows a red light, there's accountability there. Like, why'd you do that? Okay, you were following someone. Okay, no problem.
No,
Why'd you do?
I'm simply saying that depends which unit you're in, right? If you're in conditions, yes, you could be in your borough, right? If you're in, say, public safety or CRT, do I care that you're in Queens?
There's 2
assigned to Staten Island?
CRTs. There's a citywide one, and then there's borough CRTs.
Yeah.
And so the citywide one, yeah, they need the same amount of accountability as the borough accountability have. And I guarantee you, if you look at that car is going to be the citywide one, and I don't even know that to be true. I don't know. There was nothing in that article that said it was assigned to the citywide one, but I guarantee you it is, because I guarantee you there's a lot more scrutiny on the borough CRTs than there are on the citywide one. And so it's not a big deal. You blow a red light, document it. Why'd you do it? It's not a big deal to me, but there needs to be some level of accountability there. And so I wouldn't give them the leeway. I mean, I think, with great power comes great responsibility.
Mhm.
You got a lot more time than patrol guys do. So if you're doing what you need to do, just document it. It's not hard,
Yeah,
And-
I I just think that the job should treat cops more like adults. It's like I always say, like when I got into Intel, the CEO told me you have a lot of freedom here, but if you fuck up, you're getting kicked out. You know, I believe the same thing should be treated of cops. You're getting your freedom. You made it a public safety. You made it a CRT. Congratulations, guy. You're 2 steps away from getting your shield. You're 2 steps away from going on to bigger things, being an investigator. Your career path is looking great, especially if you let's say you decide to become a supervisor. You're probably gonna, your resume is looking good, right? So now I'm gonna treat you like an adult. Yes, you get a little more freedom, but if you fuck up, I'm gonna throw you to the wolves. That's all I'm saying.
But you'll never catch them because you gave them way too much leeway. That's what I'm saying. It's like there needs to be a level of accountability for it. It's not a big deal, but there needs to be some supervision. And currently, that issue is the problem is there's zero supervision going on. That's what that shows. There's zero supervision. How about the guy that smashed up 4 cars in the last month and he has a ton of red lights? Why does he have that? Because there's zero accountability. Why did he smash up 4 cars? Because there's zero accountability. Why did he get people paid out? Because there's zero accountability and zero supervision. There's this one kid. We had 2 unmarks in at one point, right? One kid, he's got to come in. The kid has I'm not even kidding. I think I think he's a captain or a DI now. He had about 700 collars, so he's an active cop. His problem wasn't that he was active or not. The problem was he was an idiot. Right? He was a complete moron. So the CEO's like, oh, he's got to be on your team, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want him. I don't want him. All he makes is 5'11" collars. He makes the stupidest collars. I don't want him. No, you're taking him. Okay. I take him. He's on my team. Somebody legitimately smacks up an RMP. Not their fault. They were going to a heavy job. Somebody hit them. Was not their fault. And then the person that did it was a good driver. This kid was a dumb driver. Had smacked up cars before. I literally gave him the call. I said, look, we have 2 unmarks in this precinct currently right now as it operates. I do not want you better not call me and tell me that you got into an accident with this car. If you ever do, you're never driving a car again. I'm just letting you know. I don't care what it was. There's zero excuse for you to get into an accident. Now, is there really zero excuse for him to get into an accident? No. I was just saying that to tell him to not be an idiot, right? I tell the other guys, he better not smack up that car. I'm telling you right now, he better not smack up that car. You drive. Well, we take turns. I said, he better not smack up that car. 4 hours later, what do I get the call? He's driving a fender bender for absolutely no reason. They're going nowhere. There's no job. They're taking no enforcement action. He never drove another car again, ever, that day. That was it. That was I was like, yeah, that's it. You don't drive anymore. You're never driving a car. There needs to be accountability. There has to be accountability. It's not treating people like children. It's not. You're a grown man. Here are the rules that are set forth for everyone. You just got to abide by them. It is what it is. If it's so ridiculous that it's hindering your performance, then you have to be a grown man and start to push back at those rules. You have to go to your union. You have to go to your supervisors, and you have to competently address that. I don't think this is hard. I think that is shows a complete lack of supervision. So I don't even blame Streets Blog for writing about it, because it should be written about and should be exposed that there is a high level of incompetence coming out of the CRT supervisors up top, like the executives in CRT. And I'm going to say again, it's probably the citywide one, and that there is a high level of incompetence coming out of the chief of department's office. It's not. This wouldn't even be an issue if they were competent at their job. Wouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah, but do you think so? What Streets Blog highlighted in this article in their article is that, again, typically NYPD files paperwork with the Department of Finance to avoid such sizable tabs on unmarked cars. They can get tickets dismissed if a commanding officer can prove that lawlessness was justified by urgent or even necessary police action.
True.
Just reading
all
that
true.
out for you civilians, so you would so you don't get lost in our a lot of our jargon and police talk here. But I think. Do you think, John, that this might be kind of going around the problem of accountability in the police department? What I'm saying is, if
No, because again, like I said, this is gonna as a supervisor, Marlon. Like, what do I not want to do? I don't want to do paperwork. Right? I don't want to do paperwork because Marlon unnecessarily goes through a red light. I don't. When Marlon unnecessarily goes through a red light, I'm going to be pissed at you. I'm going to be like, dude, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Now I got to do this. Now I got 50 of these for no reason. When Marlon's doing police work and he's making arrests and I got to do paperwork, I don't mind doing it. I do my job. It is what it is. What happens now is that like Streets Blog and everybody else, now this gets a spotlight on this issue. Oh, cops could go through red lights on duty and they don't have to pay. And now this goes through the Department of Finance. Oh, wow. Let's get a law put in place that cops now have to pay summonses every time they go through a red light. And they have to be penalized. And that should go on their license. And if they get XYZ, they should be deemed a super reckless super speeder. And that should and they should get their licenses suspended. And that all falls on the level of incompetence of the supervisors in those units, high up and even low down. It's weak supervision, dude. It's like they've created this problem, and you know that what's coming out of it. Legislation is coming down the road as a result of incompetence, right? And it's going to make cops' jobs much more harder. It's going to make their jobs so much more harder, and it's going to make the supervisor's job more harder. Why? Because they're lazy and they're stupid. Somebody was always going to answer for this. You're in charge. It's you.
Yeah, Staten Island guy, what I'm saying here is that there should be a blanket, there should be a checkbox somewhere in some form in 1PP. Oh, let's say 7-7 crime or 7-7 public safety got 10 red light camera tickets this month. Oh, it's public safety? Okay, checkbox. That's the end of that. Checkbox. The checkbox fills out some form, and that form gets sent to the Department of Finance. No need to kick it back to the CO or the special ops lieutenant or their sergeant. I'm saying that checkbox, we should give the leeway to, depending on which unit you're involved in, rather than like Chief Lukash says here, the department summons plea form is filled out to justify summons attached to ICAD. You see all this paperwork is filled out by supervisors, right? I'm saying what I'm doing is I'm cutting the paperwork. I'm saying the guy who gets it at the borough at 1PP sees it. Oh, who got that ticket? Oh, Officer so-and-so Smith. Oh, he's in 7-7 public safety. Okay, checkbox. That's the end of that. I'm giving you the leeway depending on which unit you're in. I'm giving you that room to kind of go to maybe being then in the next command, being out of borough or run red light tickets. I'm giving you that leeway because I'm treating you like adults.
Absolutely.
And John is coming from it from the angle of a supervisor that there needs to be discipline installed.
No, there doesn't need to be discipline. There needs to be accountability.
Yes, I'm sorry. Accountability.
And if anybody is going to be held more accountable, it's going to be the guys that aren't responding to 911 calls. The guys that have less paperwork to do, the guys that aren't dealing with all the bullshit, that are already treated like children, which is patrol. If I'm giving a checkbox to anybody as to who's running lights, it's going to be the patrol. It's going to be patrol. You're in public safety. You have all day to do whatever you want to do and go do it. You found it necessary to blow the red light. You could document it. It's not hard. And then the supervisor. Now, could that process be streamlined? I know Chief Lukash put up the entire process, and it is lengthy. Should that process be streamlined? Absolutely, that process should be streamlined. But there needs to be accountability for it. There needs to be accountability for it. When you're at work, when I was at work every day, when I was in an unmarked, and I had a lot of leeway, and everybody trusted me, from the CO to the ICO to everybody. I had a lot of leeway. But But if I said that I was going to go do surveillance on someone, I did surveillance on it. I probably did it 15 minutes past my toll and didn't even get paid for it. You know what I mean? I didn't go do coffee breaks. I didn't go see my girlfriends. I didn't hang out with the girls I was dating. I did all that shit after. So that's my whole thing. I just think like we're creating an issue because we're giving too much leeway to people, and we're giving and it's creating more of these issues. I give them more leeway and less accountability than I give everybody else. And guess what? Now I'm going to have legislation to deal with that's going to wind up hindering my ability to do police work and harm my police officers later on down the road, when we could have just been supervisors and monitor this and stayed with the things in place. Somebody said it here. I lost it because the chat's coming in hot and heavy, but they said it's a game. Play by the rules and you'll be fine. And that's what it is. You know, my brother-in-law told me that. He always told me be humble, like right when I was coming in. Because like I said, I came out, I had a little chip on my shoulder. I definitely had an attitude. I'm probably still not too much more mature than I was, but I'm more mature than I was, right? And the other thing he said is it's a game. You know, it's a game. Just treat it as such. And I always treated it like that from the academy all the way through. It is what it is. Here's the rules. If I can't change the rules, if you can't beat them and you can't beat them, join them. And this issue would have never came to light if the supervisors were just supervisors.
Do you think it's a case of inadequate supervision, or it's
100%?
a case of too much paperwork? Because think of it. Think of all the paperwork supervisors doing now. I mean, look how long do you have to spend reviewing camera footage, right? And all the numerous paperwork that you have to fill out now, even though we live in an age of technology, and the technology was supposed to have made your lives easy, but now you still got to fill out more paperwork for it.
But again, who's got more paperwork? The guys that are doing proactive enforcement work or a patrol cop? Because I'll tell you right now, it's a patrol cop every day of the week. They're doing tons more paperwork. Now, when you want to talk, if you're doing field intelligence, and at the moment when you're doing buys or you're conducting a search warrant or you're making an arrest, you have a lot of paperwork to deal with, right? There's a lot of things you got to deal with during that time. I do think there is way too much paperwork in the New York City Police Department, and there's a lot of paperwork that should be streamlined, and that is still true today. You know, there's a lot of forms that are doubled up consistently that you're writing over and over and over and over and over again, the same thing. And there's more of a possibility that you mess up, and it's more of a possibility that those mess ups could be used as a defense in a court trial against you, because it's so repetitive and you have too much of it to do, and you're going to make mistakes and you're tired and there's just so much stuff going on. Yeah. So 100%. There's a lot of dumb stuff there, but like, it's not an excuse, dude. Why is it only the CRT team? Why isn't it Sector Adam in the first precinct? I mean, come on. How many summonses do you think you guys in the 1st or the 17th or the 7th or the 9th? I mean, there's cameras everywhere, dude. You know, like how is patrol able to do it when they're doing more paperwork than anybody? And yet you're telling me that CRT, who has all the time in the world, they can't do it? It's 100% a supervisor problem.
Well, the CRT is protected. We know that, and they're treated a lot differently from patrol. You know, you just got to look at the injuries that have come from CRT pursuits, right? And those cops, thank God, you know, they're protected because they don't seem to be getting prosecuted for those. You know, whereas if you were a regular cop on patrol, you'd be done. But I'm coming from this also from the FIO's office, John. And I think about, like, you know, we never have enough time, you know, to accomplish what we're doing. So when you're talking about like lights, you're just slowing me down, you know. We're trying to do 10 different things in a day. And keep in mind, this is when there was 2 cops in the FIO's office and 1 sergeant. There was, you know, at one time, the FIO in the 7-5, Damon, what is his name? Sergeant Damon. If you know his name, guys, drop it in chat. He used to be the 7-5 FIO. I think he retired, but he had like a squad of guys, you know, but they were doing some great work, you know, but they had a squad of guys. So imagine the equivalent now who has a squad of guys, and he may have to review. I'm not sure if they're wearing the body cameras yet, but if they are, he may have to review their body camera footage too, besides doing all the reviewing like TRIs or all of that stuff, you know? Yes, the 7.5 Detective Nolan. This was we're talking like 10 years ago now. I mean, I think he's retired like a couple years now, maybe 3 or 4 years now. But yeah, I mean, think of it. He has to review their body cam. He has to review their TRIs. He has to, plus they're looking to drop some fives and close out get some search warrants going for the end of the week. And debrief prisoners. You still got to drop a 5 on your debriefing of your prisoner. So my point is, they already have a lot of paperwork, and I just brought up this point because the job needs to think about streamlining, all of this stuff, because in a lot of ways we created this issue with all those forms itself, and here it is. Streets blog is manipulating manipulating that fact and the fact that this paperwork wasn't updated, right, to now kind of push lawmakers to pass some new measure that's, like you said, is going to make life more difficult for the cops. So I'm just saying, the angle I'm coming from is that streamline it and bring back treat cops like adults, But
again,
I do see where you're coming from as a
I don't even.
supervisor.
I'll be honest. I don't even really blame Streets Blog, dude, because as much as they're 100% agenda driven, and you're right, they're going to use that fact and highlight it. But think about it, dude. You have guys making $200,000 a year, and they can't perform a simple task. A simple task. They're just like, nah, I'm just not going to. Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm pulling steel, bro. I don't do that. Like, okay. Oh, okay. All right, good. Now every time you get a ticket, it's going to count towards a cop's license, and you just made the job a lot harder because you pull steel, bro. Like, you got to save people from themselves. And I agree with you. There's way too much police work. It's not an excuse. It is what it is. You can't beat them. Join them. If you're not going to join them, you think you're better than the system, you're going to create more problems for people. And that's what they did. So, but let's get to the super chats, because we're at 2 hours and 30 minutes on here. We're going to close out at 3. We got about 660 people with us this morning. Thanks for joining us. We talked about the court ruling earlier in the show. If you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to that court ruling that came out of the New York Court of Appeals that pushed back against the Right to Record Act, both from the state law and the New York City law. And basically, the Court of Appeals ruled that there is no reasonable expectation that you should have the right to record inside a precinct lobby, and they upheld NYPD policy. Now, there's still some First Amendment concerns; those weren't challenged. So, we personally believe that if challenged, that would get overturned. You could go back, listen to that. We spoke about the Reyes incident with the PBA. I think he hooked them. I think he baited them. I think he's going to win. If it's reasonable, I personally think that the arrest didn't look too good to me. Didn't look. I think we gave him money. I think there's going to be legislation that comes out of that. I think stupid things happen. We just went on a tangent about Streets Blog. Let's get to the super chats. Anything else you want to say before we go to the super chats?
Yeah, I think it was a good discussion. Seeing the differences coming from like a supervisory angle and me coming from the cop angle. So I think it was a good discussion. I don't have anything else for it.
All right, so let's do it. All right, so Staten Guy 321. He says pre-surveillance state, run lights, game on. Just write 2 sentences while you blew the light. It is what it is, Mo. You forgot Mo at the end of that. It is what it is, Mo. Yeah, I agree. I say just do it, but I do understand Marlon's point. It gets to the point where it's so tedious and there's so much that guys stop doing it. But it's not an excuse. You make good money. I think people get in their own head a lot in law enforcement because there is a lot of pressures and there's a lot of things happening and there's a lot of things you're worried about. And look, let's face it, there's a lot of PTSD inside of law enforcement too, and that way and cloud your judgment and cloud your head. and all of those things. And I've experienced all of those feelings where I screw this is BS. Why do I got to do this? Blah, blah, blah. This job's BS. At the end of the day, it's a great job, gives you a great pension. Do the stupid shit. It is what it is. Get good at the stupid shit. You won't have a problem. Yeah.
I mean, you do have a point. If you're in public safety and you a lot of times, if you close out the night with 2 hours to go and you're hanging out in the office, again, you really have no excuse to not do the paperwork. So I see where you're coming at with that. I was mainly coming from the FIO's office, so.
Yeah, instead of trolling our Instagram, you could just all listen to
true.
You could just finish your paperwork. You're getting paid, dude. You're making significant amount of money, probably on overtime. So, and again, I don't blame the cops. I understand how it is because I was a cop for a long time. I understand how it is to be overwhelmed with work. I blame the supervisors. If you let me get away with shit, if you let me not update my memo book for a month, I'm not gonna update my memo book for a month. Like it just is what it is. I'm not checking it. It is what it is. Save your guys from themselves. That should be the job. Staten Guy says, resume in 2016. I have 300 arrests and I'm well trained in street level interactions. Resume in 2026. I don't know where my handcuffs are, but I'm cute. Not white, and a chief wants to impress me.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Dude, I don't know, but I was in Manhattan a lot, and I'm actually going back again. But been in Manhattan a lot this trip. I only see girl cops. It's rare that I see a couple dudes. It's like girl cop, girl cop, girl cop, girl cop, girl cop. I'm I guess the 30 for 30 movement, hot and heavy. Guess the mandate worked.
Yeah. I saw your comment earlier, Hoodmare, and yes, I do know the difference because so let me let you know, I was in the hospital for a relative. Okay, they're fine, right? But I just had to go and take them home and make sure they're okay. And I noticed everyone in the hospital had colors on their face, and I asked them if they were festive because of what's going on. And I was talking to them, and they trust me, they're not. So that's why I brought up that comment. And so.
Wow. So Nolan, $200. He says Hunter 1 wants me to give more cheddar for Eric. Hunter 1, is that enough? Thank you, Nolan. We appreciate it. Appreciate you keeping us going.
And while I was there, by the way, John, I saw there were two female cops there, and I was just looking at all the crap on their waist, and I'm like, man, the amount of stuff they had on their waist. Is the regular new radio that big, or is that just a transit radio?
I don't know, bro. The last radio I got was big. I was like, what the hell is this? I had a small radio, and then they give me a big radio, and I'm like, what are we doing? And I had just traded in a medium radio, and I'm like, what? So I don't even know. I actually haven't paid attention to the radios at all. I don't know if they went with a different carrier or whatever. I don't know. But they do. Everyone that I see, it looks like they got big radios, bigger than when I left. And I was pissed about the radio they gave me because I always had the little one. And then I had I wound up, they gave me I was like, what am I supposed to do with this thing?
Yeah. I saw it. I'm like, that thing is freaking huge. I had the small detective radio before, and I love that. No,
that was a good radio. That was an awesome
I love
radio.
that thing.
Yeah. Staten Guy 321. He says, take your personal car to a detail 4 boroughs away. You can't be late or you'll be transferred. But we won't pay you the overtime up front to get that. The job is a prison. Denied days, denied overtime. You can't even go sick long. Look, I'll tell you this. It definitely sucks while you're in it, but it's good to be a retired cop. I'll tell you that. Especially some of the guys that I know making way more money than they deserve, living pretty damn good lives, even though they sucked when we were cops together, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Get your security certifications while you're on the job, guys. There's a lot of opportunities for you when you retire in the security world and executive protection. Get that dignitary training if you can. Yeah.
Damn. Nolan sent us 200 twice. And he said,
Wow.
at mall, and Hunter asked me to give you some money. Hunter, is that enough? Should I give more? Hunter,
Yeah.
tell him to give more. Nolan, we appreciate it, bro.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, Detective Nolan. We appreciate you, brother. And your memes.
Mon Samurai's got a couple in here, but you starred this one. He says, fire detective, so just give in to the mob. How about demanding more from civilian population? No, let's fall into a low trust society instead. Madness. I don't think we said that, and I think Mon Samurai is talking about when the incident where the cops were all surrounded. We were saying tactically it's a bad situation.
Yeah.
We weren't saying let them do whatever they want and nobody cares and leave. We never said that at all. We were saying that tactically it was a bad decision on Gerber's part to make the call at that moment in time, and they were getting glass bottles whipped at their head, and it was lucky that none of them got seriously injured. Like, that's what we were saying. Tactically, it was horrific. We were not saying that at all, and we've never said that. And we've said from day one that the posture has to change at all these events, and the posture of the NYPD as a whole, not just at protests, should change. And clearly, like, we're just making a lot of bad, incompetent moves and endangering cops unnecessarily. Nolan said, I normally won't read this when he's putting on people's names in here, but to Eric Slanders, I know you are reading this. How many of your current clients are about to be scooped up by the feds? Slanders, you have a leak in your crew. Guess who it is? No comment, Nolan, but that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you see that Faizan responded to us from we had said something like, I had made the statement. I said that, I think a lot of guys are sweating, and that, like, I agree with some of his points, but it's too much to agree with. He had responded, and he said that he sleeps well at night, and he's not worried, and he's not saying that people are innocent. And I was like, okay, but and again, I'll just go back to what I originally said. I think a lot of people are sweating at night, and I think, I think, and rightfully so,
Yeah. I mean, again, we didn't throw his name into anything, all the point I was making is that, he's not a unbiased opinion in the matter, and that, he's connected to these people, so that there's there could be an interest in, protecting their names from, the public scrutiny, right? So that's all I'm saying. And it's a fact that, a lot of the names tied to Brooklyn North under Chief Madry, are getting roped up into this. So, I don't know what's there for him to rebut,
Yeah, I agree. And again, like, I do agree on the point. Like, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and allegations are just allegations, and all that. I do agree on that point. My whole point was just under the Adams administration, I've never seen this amount of allegations, indictments, arrests, search warrants pertaining to the NYPD. Like, it's wild. It's unprecedented levels. It's not something we've seen. So that was my whole point of the thing.
True.
Pat Donahue says, why wasn't the DEA canteen at the Pride Parade detail muster? Will DEA president make a comment regarding goal being banned from marching if uniformed, if armed? Well, I was under the impression that, having like a non-report that you didn't have to report to the command, like when there were large details like 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Pride, Labor Day, whatever it is, your union heads would go out with their canteens. And so definitely not a good look that they didn't go out for the goal. What does that say about detectives who were members of goal? I don't know. I mean, what's the matter? Everybody was out east. Nobody could make it in on Sunday, excuse me. I know 2 retired guys. We could have, the finest Unfiltered could have manned it for you guys. If you guys need help. Mon Samurai, why are they winning? Because they're correct or the city just doesn't want to bother fighting them. It's the latter. New York State versus every moron with a camera. Well, I often talk about it a lot, and I say that the people that don't deserve to win their lawsuits get paid out, and when the city actually does wrong, they fight them. Like as in Marlon's case or my case. So I agree with you. A lot of the settlements are frivolous, and a lot of the payouts are frivolous from corporation counsel. However, I still think that ruling makes absolutely no sense. It's just my opinion, whether we agree or not on it, it is what it is. Like that's how I don't think it stands up to a First Amendment challenge. I don't, because again, like we said, you're saying you could go to the precinct for a safe space to hang out there and watch TV and do all this other crap, and then you're going to say that the lobby isn't. And I get anything past that. I'm with you 100%. You should not be allowed to film in there. You should not be allowed to do anything in there. But I think, I think the points that we raised on here is that, it's an infrastructure problem and a manpower problem as to why there isn't a competent response when you enter a police precinct in the lobby, and then to shield crime victims properly and take reports from people who need help from the police and do that in a private manner and setting,
Yeah. And it leads to subjective enforcement. So in areas that, the city's pushing for more community involvement, like precincts to be more community centers, like maybe the 116, you'll be allowed to take a picture in a precinct, right? Nobody will care, nobody will enforce that law. But let's say I move to a different area of the city where people are more conservative, will I now be arrested if I take a picture in a precinct? No, let's have one rule for all of the city, instead of allowing there to be subjective enforcement of this law.
No, I agree. There was another ruling that came out, and I don't even want to get into it further, but I forget where it came out. Came out of DC, and it was about a stop. It was about a Fourth Amendment stop, and these cops stop an individual, and whatever happened, they I think they determined that he has a weapon on him or a gun or something, and he ruled I think they were arguing that he had consented to the stop, and they were able, because of the consent, to determine he had a firearm on him. Where and don't quote me on this because I could be a little bit off on the nuances, but I'll get to the point of what the ruling came out, and what's weird about it is that and so they argued that he didn't reasonably know that he had the right to leave, and so he felt that he had to stay during that stop. And the DC court ruled that because he was black, he probably didn't know that he couldn't just walk away from the cops, and he felt that he was being detained. And that's another arbitrary ruling, in my opinion. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case, but Alito and I think Thomas or somebody said that this is a really bad ruling, because what you're saying is that cops have to deal with people differently based on the color of their skin, and they should have different expectations with people based upon the individual itself, not as a whole. And I think that just is insane. So what you're saying is it kind of plays in there too. Maybe we'll get into that reading later, but that was the gist of it. That basically, well, the court said, if you're black, you might not know that you could that you're free to leave in that scenario. So there has to be, cops have to interact with black people differently. A terrible ruling out of DC. Way worse than this one, I think.
Yeah, I think it goes back to how in blue areas, blue cities, progressive cities, you're given a lot more leeway, because it's you're kind of treated like a moron, you don't understand the law, you don't understand this, you don't, so police need to give you a lot more leeway than, say, if you're in a conservative area where it's it's assumed that you read the sign, it's assumed that you know the law, and we're gonna treat you more like an adult, So, and I think that goes down to, if you look at other aspects of society too, by the way, in those areas, you see that same sort of thinking kind of applies as well.
Mon Samurai, you want privacy to disappear? This is patient zero. You can't beat up the Constitution just because you invoke it to defend bad or poor behavior. What's bad or poor behavior? I don't know. That's I don't really know what to say about that. And I think that you can't go over the Constitution just because you deem it poor behavior either. So poke the bear, then immediately go to rhetoric to defend your actions to sound legit. These aren't First Amendment activities. This is using 1A to forward an agenda. Look, again, I'm going to say, like, I think that a lot of these auditors they're violating the law. But I think certain amount of them are finding holes in policy. They're finding holes in officer training, and they're finding holes in immaturity of police officers, and they're attacking those weaknesses. And that, again, is a result of incompetence in leadership and incompetence in training. And so, again, whatever their agenda is doesn't matter, because the First Amendment applies to them as it applies to us equally, whether we're agenda driven or not. And so when they're arguing the law and they're right on the law, regardless if I like them or not, I'm going to side with it, because again, those who will trade liberty for safety deserve neither and are destined for a master. And I agree with those words.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get into that bubble in law enforcement that we can't see things from outside the law enforcement angle. And I think it's always important to, see outside your bubble, because again, you're also not going to be a cop forever. Okay. At one point or another, you're going to become a civilian, and nobody in uniform is going to remember you as captain, sergeant, detective, so and so. You're going to be a civilian too. So I think it's important to get out that bubble. And though a lot of those people are trying to go viral or trying to get that lawsuit, it, like John says, it's still they're still protected by the First Amendment. And I think there's plenty of middle ground that even those of us who are inside that bubble should be able to see where people like that have a point. So
he also says, that's right, John. We should run the world the way influencers and content creators want us. How dare people act civil and respectful to others? And again, I'm going to say, I'm not looking at it from the standpoint of them generating content. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of you're a victim and you have a police who have proven time and time again that they have an agenda to show that crime is down, that they consistently misrepresent or do not report crime at all, and you become a crime victim, and you need the police department to take a report for whatever reason. Your car was stolen, and in order for you to make an insurance claim, you need that report, and they're unwilling to do that. How the hell in God's green earth could you tell me I don't have the right to record that conversation when a police officer is refusing to do that? But at the same time, have laws that say you could film the police, and we have a First Amendment, and we respect your First Amendment, and we have a right to media and journalism. I'm like, again, this isn't about content creation for me. This is about actual people who have actual real world problems. It's not about Sean Reyes finding holes in the system and attacking them, or other idiots just doing it for content creation. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about there are problems that regular people are going to deal with the police department. The police department is a highly flawed organization, and I'm not going to pretend for a minute that it's not.
Yeah.
So
there's also a comment by Chief Marino. He says, "Don't you think they're exploiting the Constitution for personal gain? You can't." Well, I'm just going to point out. Yeah. I'm just going to point out, Chief, that the city, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that the police precinct is a community center, but now I can't record. You got to pick one. Is it a police station or is it a community center? If you want it to be a community center, then I'm sorry, you can't tell me that the public can't film inside certainly the lobby of a police precinct. We can't have it both ways, you know.
You have a legitimate problem with the police. I could just assign that to you too. He's just coming in here to exploit the Constitution. We're gonna pick and choose who the First Amendment applies to. I don't see it. The laws apply equally, regardless of your agenda, regardless if you're a lying effing son of a bitch or not. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. What do we have to be roll out the red carpet for you in that situation? No, but law should apply. The Constitution should apply in every scenario. You know, and once you step beyond that, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not concerned with the influences at all. I'm concerned with regular people interacting with their police department. You know, and unfortunately, with great power comes great responsibility. You're going to have to deal with the influences, you know, and have a competent response to that too. And don't allow yourself to get hooked and get abused and all these other things, you know, and know the law so that you're not giving these people exorbitant amounts of money either and dirtying you up in your career and making you look like an idiot, like you're untrained, you don't know, you're immature. It's not hard. Like, honestly, I think competent policy really ends a lot of what we're seeing here. Monon Samurai, the way the city is going, police precincts will have party rooms and DJs available for your daughter's quinceañera. Well, look, dude, and that's the other thing. You know, most of the stuff is the department's fault. You know, that is what it is. Like it's most of it's the department's fault. There was actually it was called the People's Precinct was the project. And part of that precinct, other than just the more community-friendly police rooms and the more community-friendly police precincts, was they wanted unlicensed vendors to be free and safe from enforcement around the precinct. But so what we did is we just don't enforce vendors anywhere because all over Midtown, what do I see? Illegals everywhere selling fraudulent merchandise, fake Louis Vuitton bags, fake everywhere. That used to just be on Canal Street. Now the entire city, they're everywhere, and there's unlicensed vendors everywhere, food everywhere, you know, and the licensed vendors are paying the price for all that, and the businesses are paying the price for all that, and there's zero enforcement happening on it. You know, any type of enforcement is just to get it on camera. It's not helping anything. It's like go on any city block right now. There's somebody there selling something, unlicensed, not paying taxes, and more than likely it's bootleg goods.
Follow up Modern Samurai, maybe so, but like John says, he's still got a First Amendment. So First Amendment and the Constitution it not only applies to people that we like or the people that are honest or the people that are we may think are not scumbags. Okay, now I'm not saying he's a scumbag or anything. I'm just pointing out that some people think he is. I'm just saying that the Constitution applies to everybody, and he still has that right. So,
yeah, I mean, we're not there to be the moral judge of character. It is what it is. We're not there. Oh, morally, I can't take this report for you because I don't trust you. It is what it is. All right. There's got to be standards and practices. Yeah. It is what it is. We do it. It has to be investigated. It is what it is for anything. You know, I'm not there to be the moral judge of anybody, you know, and I don't want anybody being the moral judge of me either.
Yeah. Yeah. Mayor Greco was right. Yeah, we got to protect the rights of assholes too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Staten Guy 321 says the DEA is goal. And Staten Guy, he says, think Nolan meant to give 20 and hit 200. I think Nolan meant to hit 2,000 and he hit 200 by accident. That's what I think. So. Yeah. Too funny. So Nolan says the last honest person I know was Sergeant Joseph Trimboli. Rest in peace. Don't know him, my friend. Don't know him. Rest in peace, Trimboli. Yeah, I think that's it, bro. I think we're good. 2 hours, 58 minutes, 680 people on here. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell wherever you're watching or listening to this. If you're on our audio, please do us a favor. Give us a 5-star review and leave a comment. We appreciate it. Like we said, appreciate you guys in the chat always engaging with us. And yeah, we'll be back at you. We'll be back out on Wednesday. And Marlon, you got anything before we run out of here?
No. Yeah. I think it was a good show. Yeah, I was up late last night, guys. So you know, sorry if people didn't understand me in the beginning. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I'm driving home late last night, and I'm like, man, I'm falling asleep at the wheel. I'm like, what the hell, man? I used to be a midnight cop. This was like nothing to me. Yeah, but now I'm older, and like 11:30 comes on, I'm like, I could barely keep my eyes open. But anyway, you guys have a great week ahead. Stay safe and stay alert, and just keep in mind we're still in the summer. I mean, summer's really just begun, and the wolves are out there, and sun's out, guns out. So be safe and stay alert, and see you on Friday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday, baby. 10-4 Tavern tomorrow, I believe, is their last show. They had their last guest show last week. So we'll miss those guys, but we'll keep putting out clips of other interviews. Marlon put out a couple of great ones of one of Chief Herbert he put out. I thought that was a great segment. He also put one out with oh man, why am I losing this guy's name right now? Anamone, Chief Anamone. So check those out. We've been putting out the short form content too. So we appreciate all you guys for joining. Executive Perspective will be back on Wednesday.
Yeah, and watch out Kinsella one too. Just help us get her really, have a contemplative day. Okay, I'll just put it at that.
Yeah, that was honestly, it was a really well done. You did a great job putting that one together, but I guarantee
I did it, John. You sure it was me?
I'm gonna blame Eric and Paul
anyway.
on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no. But it was a good one, dude. It was definitely a lot of clips. So, all right, people, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back at you. Find us on Unfiltered.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?